some Discord links.
Yeah, I just dropped it in my Discord, and I sent the tweet with the article link out as well. So that should have the link to the show in it.
So shit.
All right, let's get these lineups in, and then I'm all good. One hell of a Twins lineup.
Let's see. Yankees. Oh yeah, that's a spring training lineup. What the heck?
Yeah, right?
How's the air out there now?
Better today.
Yeah.
Yesterday it was still like, it was clearer yesterday, so it wasn't like all orange out. It wasn't all like, you could see down the block and everything, but you could still like taste it in the air. You could smell it in the air. It was still there. It was just like not as visible. Today it's a little bit less of that. Like today it's gone down to like, I think, breathable air. It's not like don't go outside levels.
Yeah, some of those pictures were crazy.
It was nuts. I'd never seen anything approaching that. And the fact that it's like, it's not that there was a fire in like Connecticut or North Jersey. The fact that it's from Canada, it's just like.
You know what's crazy? I haven't seen a single video of of this fire.
The actual fire?
Yeah, all I see is the pictures from our side.
Yeah.
Like when there's fires here, there's like helicopter cams and all kinds of stuff. I didn't even see nothing about.
Right, yeah, like, videos of like the people driving down the roads trying to get away from their houses and everything, like surrounded by smoke and everything. Yeah, I haven't seen any of that. Maybe it's all on the up on the CBC. We gotta be in Canada to see it. Somebody tweeted out a good thing. I don't know if you ever watched the show Nathan For You with Nathan Fielder. He did like a bunch of like kind of prank scam, whatever you want to call it. Like the bit was that he was like going in to help somebody's business, and it would always be like, so here's the premise. And for this, it was like, so here's the premise. We'll boost Canada's social media profile by piping smoke into America's most prosperous, largest city. It was a good bit. It doesn't translate well to what I just said, though.
Wait, was that made before this, or is it just like making fun of this?
No. It was somebody tweeted it out. Like, that would have been Nathan Fielder doing a bit. Like, that's.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Dude, I got a kitten that randomly showed up at my door. Has a collar and everything, and it will not leave.
Really? Did you feed it?
I have not, but now I'm starting to feel bad.
Right, yeah, if it's just there. I mean, feeding it is the way to guarantee that it won't leave, but you also don't want it to starve. That's it's tough. I don't know. The collar doesn't have any kind of like tag, ID, anything like that. Like
no, it's like a fuzzy pink collar. It can't be more than a month or two old. He's a baby. But like the other day, I woke up and the cat was in my bed. I was like, "What the freak is this? Like, how did this happen?" And then but he's like this. He doesn't meow. He's a little sweetie. He plays a little rough. But I'm like, you belong somewhere.
Yeah, you would think, but I guess take care of him until bump into a sign or something that says "lost cat." Fanatic says they made a big deal about the fire smoke in New York City, but nobody cares about the exhaust fumes they inhale every day. Well, we're used to that.
We can see
this thick smoke that tastes like maple syrup outside. That's kind of the problem. Exhaust fumes I'm used to. I could walk through the Lincoln Tunnel if I had to.
Yeah, what's up, guys? Happy Friday. It's June 9th, 2023. It's a Friday. There's a ton of baseball, and we are gonna ramble about it for 2 hours. So it is kind of nice that we were like unlimited because we are long winded when it comes to baseball. But it's our thing. It's our thing.
Yeah,
If you
absolutely.
guys,
And I love that we get 13 games to talk about. It's not just like, a handful of games. Like we could sink our teeth into this one.
yeah, if you guys didn't join us last Friday, there was a lot of good reviews on that one. So hopefully, at least once a week, we can join forces and break down some baseball. This, let's see. Usually, when I start off these things, I check the weather, or sometimes the air quality. Now, gotta add that to the mix. Let me see. I'll open up Roth's report here. But anyway, shout out to the live chat. Shout out to Steve, Fanatic, Dang Lazy Mofo, EB, Mamba. You guys should do the show every Friday. Well, every Friday is a big slate, so like I'm game for whatever. How'd the cat wind up in your bed? All right, so the way my place is set up is in order to like go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I gotta like walk into like the garage port area, and that's where the cat stays, into another door. And I guess I'm a stumbling bear when I'm half asleep, and I guess he just like followed me when I came back, and then I woke up and he was like cuddled on my arm like a I don't know. And I was like, well, at that point, he's just cute. I'm not finna just wake him up and chunk him. But
Right.
yeah,
At least you didn't like scared and like fling him or something like that. Like, just suddenly an animal in your bed. It's kind of surprising, I would think.
a little bit. Oh man, what up, Travis? What up, Larry? Humboldt could be Travis. 4-prawn dinger, man. You guys are coming out in numbers. Going best home run pick today, low owned. Oh man, we're gonna get into that. Bring that question up again a little bit later. I haven't looked at ownership. Matter of fact, I'll take a peek at it. But is this ain't a core slate, right? Usually these big Friday non-core slates, ownership's a little bit spread out. It might get to like 14% on like one or two teams, but I haven't looked yet.
This is a core slate.
Oh, it is? Okay, well.
Odds
I'll tell you what, last core slate, the Rockies didn't get tough. I'm sure the Padres will get a lot of
I feel
Austin
like
Gomber.
the Pods with a 6 and change run total probably going to be a little bit popular, but giant slate, I feel like we're going to have spread out ownership no matter what. And like that's typically my approach. A lot of people have been asking about like how do I build lineups, how do I go about things on slates of various sizes and everything. And my typical approach for a slate of this size, particularly one with what I think is a pretty deep and broad pitching pool, like we've got a few top end pitchers, and then we've got a pretty broad slate of playable parts anyway at like right prices. My approach is to kind of spread out and try and throw a blanket over as much as I can and capture as much of the potentially high end outcomes as I can. Is that typically how you approach a slate like this, or do you kind of zero in on I like these 5-6 spots at the plate, I like these 5-6 pitchers, and I want to get as many combinations of those specific things? Because I think there's two, very specific ways to approach it. How do you normally do it?
Yeah, so I think it is slate specific and also slate size specific. So
Yeah.
if we get to a situation on a big Friday slate, we've seen this in the past where one team pushes 18% ownership. Even though I agree, like that team's in the craziest spot, usually I'll just give that 18% back to the field, and that gives me more bullets. And you'll take what we say, 26 teams tonight. We'll take a chance on 25 teams being a better play in baseball than the one team. So typically, yeah, I am a little bit of a chalk donkey when it comes to pitching because usually pitching has a higher predictive value and. Unless you played any pitcher yesterday, then
Yeah, right.
Unfortunately, I faded all pitchers today. I did good. But yeah, no, that's about how I roll. It does change slate to slate, and then like sometimes, so like if a team was 18% on a big slate like this, I could still undercut, chop it into half, be there, and then maybe handcuff them to a lower owned stack. So that's the beauty of DFS baseball is like even high ownership is still easy to get around, and I think a lot of people are too scared about that. And this isn't basketball, right? It ain't football. You could still grab some high owned bats and be just fine.
To me, and that's something I've talked about quite a bit lately too, and I think we touched on it in last week's show and everything. It's just, to me, for baseball especially, just the sheer force of how lineups come together with, two chunks of teams, but then differentiated spots within that at different positions and multi-position and everything. It flows together so well that it just offsets most of my ownership concerns about, especially around duplication. Like, I still want to focus on ownership for leverage purposes, to be ahead behind the field on certain plays, to gain advantage over the field on certain plays. But as far as like duping lineups that are high probability lineups, I worry about that so much more in the NBA. For baseball, it just comes together and it's just already offset because I'm playing, some low cost second baseman that other people aren't playing because he's, and he's 2% owned. So that changes the nature of my, say, Padres stack. Right, so I don't mind going to chalk at the plate at all. I'll take high end teams. The way I approach it typically, especially on a big slate like this, is to, like you said, you've got 25 other teams. I want to cast a big net over as much of that as I can, and a lot of the slate, especially at the plate. Maybe I limit my focus on the mound a little bit more, but I do like to spread out a little bit on the mound as well. I'll get away from the chalk a little bit on the mound sometimes too.
Yeah, and those nights where the 50% owned pitcher collapses, it makes strategies like that hit that gold chest on the other side of the rainbow a lot faster.
Oh, yeah.
Let me open up the weather report. So I usually start all my research at first, getting a little look at weather. I put a link in chat. It's from Kevin Roth. Looks like the main trouble spot might be the Royals at Baltimore. So it's fairly smoky all day in Baltimore. I think there's at least a chance of a smoke postponement. Of course, that would come down well ahead of first pitch, so it's something we'll watch for outside of what we have. Also, a chance for a delay with a few scattered showers and storms in the area. It's not enough rain to cause a postponed game, so if we get closer to first pitch, they might have to cancel for smoke. All right, so smoky and potentially rainy. Pittsburgh has a little yellow on it. Dodgers at Philly, kind of the same situation, a little bit of smoke. And then the New York game also has a little bit of yellow. So there's not much rain around, but it might be poorly timed arriving around first pitch. So they might have a small delay. We'll see about that. And Coors is pretty clean. Speaking of Philly, before, like maybe an hour before I went live, you see there's like a pitch clock, I would say conspiracy. I guess it is kind of a conspiracy where players of the Phillies and even visiting players have voiced that they feel like the pitch clock is faster, and then somebody went out there and grabbed all the pitch clock violation data, and the Phillies or Citizen Bank Park games have so much more violations than league average.
Really?
And yeah, so there, I mean, it might be quantified by data now. So I guess keep an eye on that. So if Alek Manoah ever pitches in Citizens Bank Park, he's dead.
If he ever makes it back to the show at all. Wow, I hadn't seen that. I wonder did they nudge their clock somehow so that it's counting 0.8 of a second for every second, or are they just like starting it early? Like, how are they even doing that?
I have no idea. I've never I haven't watched a lot of Citizens Bank Park, but like it was exponentially greater than it was a big leap over number 2 and exponentially greater than average. So there might be something to it. Hopefully that that coming out will just have people investigate it and fix it right away. But
yeah, you think?
Yikes. Steve said
away to cheat if that's what they were doing.
Larry says your buddy's batting cleanup for Baltimore. Is it Hicksy?
Oh yeah.
Man,
game 2-3 days ago when Hicks hit the home run. I had gone on like a 30-second rant on my show about how they were taking an opportunity away from Colton Cowser and he should be in the league, and what the hell are they doing with Hicks not even on their roster, and so on and so forth. So that locked in his home run for that night, and I think he had another semi-productive day yesterday.
Right. The recipe is anyone that sucks in New York, leaves, grow a beard, they're going to be goated. And I think he has like a 1. OPS or something since he's been in Baltimore. It's stupid. I actually had
his one sustained talent over time has always been seeing pitches, drawing walks. If he's doing that, he's at least semi-viable if he can put bat on ball and he's getting regular playing time. So maybe I was a little heavy-handed with the Hicks take the other day.
I had it that night specifically. I had him in my single entry on Fanduel, and for about 25-30 minutes, I was sitting in first place. And whenever I'm up in first place, midway through the slate, I don't expect to finish. So I just went. I got on Fortnite, played some games. I look back at the end of the night. I missed cash by 3 points. Man, baseball is a cruel sport. I don't remember what happened, but
It's amazing though the swings with baseball. Like you can be, 2/3 of the way through the slate and you're sitting at a decent score and like, all right, there's a little, there's a good chunk of my games left. I should have an opportunity to get from here to here, and then the slate, the field will fall down. It'll be back here, so I should have a decent night here. And then you look back an hour later and your lineup never moved and the entire slate bypassed it. And you didn't even cash. It's bananas how baseball works that way.
Yep. And it was I forget who there was like a chalky pitcher that was getting beat. Oh, it was the Mitch Keller night against the Athletics. And I faded him, and I played Kyle Gibson against the Brewers, and I got 7 strikeouts, 5 innings. So I was a quality start from cash, but I thought I big brained into a good one.
Good spot, yeah.
Speaking of big brain, this stream brought to you by 2 big brains. One of them, the behind RunDFS.com. If you guys want to get into the spreadsheet that you'll be seeing on the stream throughout the duration of this broadcast, you go to RunDFS.com, click VIP memberships. There's like 4 membership types available: the week pass, the 2-week pass, month pass, and the rest of the year pass, which this is just like a reward for the dog days of summer grinders. I promise you, when NFL comes back, this ain't gonna be $249. We charge the NFL people more, okay? But if you guys get the rest of the year pass, or the rest of the year pass comes with a $100 credit towards Fantasy Cruncher, so it's almost a rebate. And down to $149, and then you click the VIP portal. There's a link to spreadsheets, and more importantly, a link to the RunDFS.com VIP Discord. You get in there a few times a week. I'm in there before lock with the homies talking baseball, and then Rotoscouts.com, which is Terry's baby. This one's completely free, and I don't know how much longer it's going to be free, but it has to be. Without hyperbole, the greatest baseball resource for free. And I think I told you the other day, I don't know how you do these articles every day. You are disciplined and grindy, but the full length articles that he posts.
Saying disturbed.
I couldn't do. And when I used to write articles, they weren't even near like your length, and even then, I felt exhausted because the shelf life is so short. But he puts them out there, so take advantage.
5 minutes before this show, and it's the content will last while we talk about this, and then for like another hour while I build lineups, and then it's on to tomorrow. It's unbelievable, but I don't know. I'm sick in the head. I enjoy it. Keep going though. Keep talking about it.
So if you're out there and you want to create yourself a process, I definitely think you should be checking out the free article. I'll put it in chat from Roto Scouts. And then if you're on Twitter and YouTube, we've been trying to hype up Terry's social numbers. The YouTube channel, we've watched fly by 100+ subs already. So now the next goal is 200. So if you're watching, when you get a chance, open up a new tab, type in Roto Scouts, find Terry, hit that sub button, and if you're on Twitter, find Roto Scouts and follow them. But my goodness, look at this article. It's so long, and it's not fluff information. I mean, you might find articles not near this length, but they're mentioning ERA and average. Like my man's out here putting the advanced metrics, BVP. This is a must read. So if you're just out there with your tablet or somewhere at a Starbucks every day, you should definitely make this part of your process. Read through it. It's just crazy. So check that out, rotoscouts.com for free. And I don't know why Terry's doing this for free, but I can't imagine this is going to be free next year, man. This is incredible content. So that's
appreciate that. Stephen Leibowitz in the chat says, and he's writing that while inhaling smoky air. But yeah, Stephen, that's every day. That has nothing to do with the weather lately.
Did you see that meme where it says Yankees will give the first 18,000 fans in attendance a gas mask, and it had it was a Photoshop gas mask with a Yankee logo on it, and I was like, I actually kind of want that. No, this is better than bobblehead. Oh man. Anyway, we've got a billion games to talk about, so let's jump into the action. If you guys got any questions, comments, concerns as we go game by game, throw them at us. It is a big one, and we're going to start with one of the biggest rivalries in the all of history. History, not current. I don't know if you saw the bulletin board data from Nestor Cortez, but he basically said, "No, this ain't a rivalry now. It's like we got deeper feud with Toronto and Tampa Bay right now." So I think maybe Boston puts that as a bulletin board material. As I type in the confirmed Yankees lineup, this lineup a little bit different. Volpe back in the 9th spot. No Judge still. They backdate him to the IL. Josh Donaldson has homered his way into the 2-hole, which is interesting. Anthony Rizzo in the 3 spot, Stanton behind him, and then it kind of falls off the cliff. But Jake Bauers has showed some pop lately. Yesterday, Willie Calhoun showed some pop, but he's not in today's lineup. They got Billy McKinney. For whatever reason, Terry, they still I don't know what Estevan Florial has to do to be called up with this shallow outfield, but man's raking in AAA. Maybe he's just straight up. I think he was out of options because I thought they DFA'd
so, yeah.
him.
I think that's probably what's blocking him right now. Like, they don't want to bring him up and then have nothing to do with him. So I would imagine, like, they just care less about Billy McKinney. If they have to waive him, so be it, I think. McKinney's kind of interesting for 2,100, 2,300. Homered last night. Is a guy who was once upon a time like a highly regarded prospect, but we're into the post hype stage of his career here. But getting a shot, he's hitting 7th in Yankee Stadium as a lefty against Garrett Whitlock. There is upside there for home run potential. It's kind of the same play as Jake Bauers at the same position. Actually, same positioning on DK for 23 or 21 between those two. Different positions, first base for Bauers, outfield for McKinney on Fanduel, so you get him at different spots. But they're like the same guy basically here, I think. But you do get a little bit of power upside. No Glaber in the Yankees lineup.
Yeah, no Glaber, no Willie. It's a unique lineup. There's still a little bit of hope, but the Yankees have just a 4.5 implied run total. Red Sox 3.7. We got Garrett Whitlock on the bump against Garrett Cole. Garrett Whitlock's pitching to a 4.61 expected ERA this season, a sub 19% K rate, still a double-digit swing and strike rate, and a 17.6% call strike rate. Barrel rate's a little bit elevated, but at 6,500, he does historically maybe have an ability to get righties to strike out, so maybe he starts tapping into some of that. And then inversely, Garrett Cole now has Jose Trevino back for the second game. Last game out, I think he was just holding his own, but then 80 pitches in, he got cramps. Hopefully those cramps don't rear their ugly head tonight, and Garrett Cole can be a workhorse. He has pitched himself to a 3.85 expected ERA. A lot of that has been from his last 5-game stretch, just kind of regressing from that incredible start to this season, but he's still holding on to a 26% overall K rate, about 11% swing and strike rate. And like I said, a lot of this might just be from a poor stretch in the last couple games. I don't know if you believe in catcher splits with pitchers, but there's certainly been the last 2 years a vast difference in results, at least, between Trevino to Higashioka. And you might remember there was at one point Higgy was Cole's caddy because they grew up together, and then something happened. He's like, you know what, I need Trevino, and then that kind of clicked. So just I don't know. I don't even know if I believe in it or not, but it's at worst a coincidence with a little bit of history now, and that's going back to the entire season last season to now.
Higgy's a good catcher, and like you said, he was his original caddy, and then it kind of changed up. I think it is inarguable that Trevino is an excellent framer of pitches, though, right? So there is a little bit of potential for, is he getting an additional strike here and there on the corners because it's Trevino? There is potential to that. Does it make all the difference in the world? No, but pitchers are funky and they're weird and psychological and all of that shit that goes into pitching. So if Cole believes that he's better when Trevino's behind the plate, there could just be a boost from that aspect of it alone. that's totally unquantifiable in numbers or anything. The thing that still concerns me with Cole is just how the pitch mix has been working this year, how the whiff rates have come down on his breaking stuff. His 10.7% swinging strike rate is fine in general, but that's down hard from 14.3 last year. 27.9% CSW, down significantly from 31.9 last year, and both of those marks were down slightly from the year before, with his strikeout rate going 33.5 2 years ago, 32.4 last year, and then crashing to 25.9. Like a 26% strikeout rate is still a very good pitcher, but it's not Garrett Cole. That's what concerns me, and that's not really cooked into his pricing here. 11,000, 10.5. We're getting Cole basically at, his original pricing for where he should be, where he was. And he's not been that guy necessarily. Like you referenced before, he was pitching really well earlier in the season, but it was still more a case of like he's pitching really well, but he wasn't still finding those strikeouts as frequently as he did. He lost like a mile an hour on the velocity on his four-seamer, and I think he was compensating it by throwing a few more. I think it was his cutter, and then he increased his curveball usage. I forget what the mix was. I wrote about it 2 starts ago. But there was just some changes in his pitch mix that was affecting the whiff rates on those pitches. So a little bit of concern around that. I'll still have tons of Cole. He still projects out at the top of my board here, but I do have my concerns. So we'll see what we get.
And that's also like catchers call games, right? So maybe Higgy was calling for a little bit. I don't know. I'm very interested to watch. Another thing that's interesting about just Cole in general today is he's not the highest owned. He's actually coming in as the 5th highest owned pitcher. That's below Montgomery, below Louis Castillo, below Tyler Wells, and below Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani's tops at 40+%. So Garrett Cole's sitting around 17%. So Garrett Cole on DraftKings, is he going to be an optimal pitcher over 17% of the time? I think it's very possible. I'd be happy to sit at 20-25% and feel like I'm not taking a giant risk. Red Sox lineup, I don't have a confirmed one yet. I do have a lot of scrappy hitters or scrappy K-rate guys with Verdugo, Yoshida, Turner, Rafi Devers, probably an aggregate 15% K rate, Yoshida under 10%, and depending on if like Duvall or Jarren Duran's in the lineup, but a guy like Cole, he can go out there and fetch strikeouts from even guys that don't strike out. Certainly a little bit of history between him and Rafi Devers. To close the season last year, he ended up getting the better of Devers, but there was a game in Fenway where Devers just had his number and Cole was just absolutely defeated. But at 17% ownership, I'm interested. How about 6,500 Garrett Whitlock? That one's interesting because this isn't the most premium Yankees lineup, and that's a cheap price. And Garrett Whitlock, his K numbers haven't been there this season, but last year they were there. His pitch count the last 2 games, 92, 97. So maybe he's got 100 bullets in the chamber. If he can go 5+ in Yankee Stadium, maybe get us a strikeout per inning and have some run prevention, 6,500 might become 15 to 20 pretty fast. Do you have any interest in a little bit of Whitlock?
On DK for 65 as an SP2, I think he's absolutely on the board. I think exactly what you said. You get a handful of strikeouts out of him if you get 5 and change innings here, and he projects like that for me. If I give him 5 and change innings, he projects to that like good enough handful of strikeouts, a handful, get the innings, maybe book you a win bonus. For 65, there's definite value in that on this slate. There's a lot of pitchers in that range. Like I referenced when we started the show, I think it's a broad slate in a lot of ways. Like there's a lot of guys like Yusei Kikuchi at 71 could give you strikeouts in his matchup against that weird Twins lineup. Logan Allen, Tyler McGill could give you something. Josiah Gray, it's not a good situation, but could give you something. Adrian Hauser could give you something against Oakland. Like, there's a lot of guys in that price range, but I think Whitlock is certainly a good option here. You need him to find the strikeout rate that he was at last year and the year before. 26.4% strikeouts over 78 and a third, 9 starts last year. 27.2% in 73 and a third entirely out of the bullpen the year before. If he becomes that guy for 5.5 innings, that's value at 6,500. And like you said, It's not the premium version of the Yankees lineup by a long shot. There are definite strikeouts. Even DJ, he's leading off today. He's striking out 27.1% of the time this year, doubled his strikeout rate, and is giving us nothing in terms of the triple slash, nothing in terms of power. I don't know what's going on with DJ. Kind of concerned there, and not really a good option in the leadoff role. Then Donaldson, Rizzo, for all his talent and his good triple slash and everything, still strikes out 23.2% this year. Everybody else behind that is either a much worse hitter or an aggressive strikeout guy, or both. In the case of like Anthony Volpe at 188, 264, 353 with a 72 WRC plus. I like the power, I like the stolen bases, but he's got to get on base to actually be able to steal bases, and the power is not frequent enough to make up for the 31% strikeouts right now for this kid. So concerns about Volpe, concerns about the entire everybody after 4 basically in that Yankees lineup. So yeah, there's upside for Whitlock here for sure. How much Yankees would you go to against Whitlock?
Let's see. Relative to the field, let me pull up Yankees ownership. I would imagine
they're that popular, right?
Yeah, I don't think this game will garner a lot because very low run totals. Yeah, my list of Yankees would probably be pretty concise, just based on this lineup being pretty watered down. And you mentioned Volpe; he doesn't hit for a great average. There's a lot of times he can walk his way on, and Whitlock somehow throws 100 pitches in 5 innings, but not a high walk rate. So I guess he's just having some really long at bats. Yankees.
Yeah, he's pretty good for control command too. That 4.7 is not off what he's done the last 2 years. 4.8 last year, 5.7 the year before. So I mean, he's a pretty good control command guy. So that's might take those walks for Volpe off the board too.
Yankees have 2 players projected over 1% owned. At Stanton at 2.7, Rizzo at 3.5. So I would definitely
buy some shares of that.
Yeah, absolutely. At the very least, I'd be in on some Substacks. But I'd puncher's chance. Rizzo, Stanton, Donaldson. I would probably leave in Volpe just because he could have multi-stolen base potential if he did squib one on. So
the guys I'd mostly like take off the board. If I'm building 150 Yankee stacks, they would be, of course, in 10 to 15 of them each, but I'm not that interested in IKF, Isaiah Kiner Falefa hitting 6th, and I'm not that interested in Trevino as a catcher hitting 8th. Everybody else in the lineup is at least playable if you're going to multiple Yankee stacks, and that top end, at those ownership numbers, I definitely think there's justification for playing the DJ, Donaldson, Rizzo, Stanton, maybe some Jake Bauers, maybe some Billy McKinney and Volpe, but the top end there with the Donaldson, Rizzo, Stanton core, I think is definitely playable here. For all his talent, Whitlock is giving up a 4.72% home run rate over his 25 2/3 and 8.8% barrels. It's only 5 starts, only 25 2/3 innings, but last year 3.22% home run rate, 8% barrels over 78 1/3. Year before was better for power, but that was entirely out of the bullpen. So in a starting role, he gives up the home run, and we know there's home run upside in Yankee Stadium. So kind of interested in that top end of the Yanks now.
Yeah, shout out to new people in the chat. Austin has showed up. Mr. Grapefruit, Baldy in the OFA. Appreciate you guys joining us. Mamba, vouching for your contest. Says, I can vouch. Read Terry's article and get the season pass. Oh, he's talking about my season. I'm up 60K this week with 1,200 in entry fees. Yeah, Mamba's killing it. Mamba, I've challenged Mamba. He hit a big one in basketball. He just hit a big one for baseball. NFL, he's got to run the Triple Crown, and then they can wear that. All right, we spent a lot of time on one game, Chad, but it's time to move on. Royals and the Orioles. So just remember to keep an eye on the potential smoke situation. Royals have just a 3.5 run total. Orioles up at 4.7. Daniel Lynch on the bump for the Royals, and Tyler Wells on the bump for the Orioles. So both lineups came out. I'll get them updated here in a minute, but I do want to throw back to when I was looking at pitcher ownership projections. Tyler Wells actually came in second in slate ownership for pitchers, and there's not a close third. It's Ohtani 42%, Wells 35%, and Castillo 21%. So he's 14% higher owned than the third highest owned pitcher. And I guess I understand why people would want to play him, but that's an aggressive number. 26% K rate this season, 3.46 expected ERA, a sub .9 WHIP, and he's facing a Royals team 79 WRC plus, and when a lot of strikeouts, just past Cantino and Nicky Lopez, who Nicky Lopez not even in the confirm. Oh yeah, he's batting ninth. Strikeout less than 20%. So it is a premium matchup, but you're also getting really high ownership. 8,300, I get it. So we kind of talked at the top of the show about what to do with high ownership, whether it comes to hitters or pitchers. What does that information about Tyler Wells make you want to do?
That probably makes me want to play a little bit less Tyler Wells. Particularly, it's his 8,300. That's kind of like a lost in the middle price on the DK board. It's not a value and it's not a high price. You can absolutely use him, but if he's going to be that popular, he's kind of an easy scratch off for me. I would undercut it at the very least. Roster him at half of whatever the field's projected for. Use him that way. There's so many options. If you want a guy that's just similar to him, you could go to like Marcus Stroman with some strikeout upside for him in that game in San Francisco. 8,700. He's 400 more. It's the same idea of some clean innings in a decent enough matchup. You could go to Jordan Montgomery against Cincinnati for 73. There are so many options. That ownership is out of line in my mind. That's a surprise. I'm glad he's 9,700 on the Fanduel slate. I assume that he's probably going to be pretty popular over there too, but that makes it easier for me to not really care about him. He does project well for me. He's in the top half of the board, but he's not at the very top of the board. He's behind guys like Dylan Cease, Yuri Perez, Sonny Gray. Like, there are a lot of options at similar prices on both sites, so I have no issue with undercutting the field, at least on Wells. But he's been good. Like you said, 26.6% strikeouts, only 5.3% walk rate, a very good walk rate, so nice command, nice control, 0.85 whip, 12.1% swinging strikes is very, very good. He's been definitely good. What I would say, though, is maybe we take some shares of Royals bats if we're playing on DK against all that ownership. I like the Royals for home run upside on a lot of different slates. They've got a lot of good home run hitting guys who hit the ball very, very hard at the very least, even if it doesn't go over the wall. We've got 6 guys in the confirmed lineup here. They call it 5 because one of them was a very short sample. 5 guys with an over 10% barrel rate, a couple guys in the 12s. And then everybody, except for the last 2 hitters in the lineup, well above a 40% hard hit rate, with MJ Melendez sitting at 54.7. Even Michael Garcia is 55.6. Sal Perez, 48.2. You've got a lot of home run potential in that lineup against Tyler Wells, who, for all his strikeout upside, is allowing a 10.7% barrel rate, a 5.32% home run rate so far this year, 39.3% hard hits, 89.1 miles an hour of average exit velo, 20.1 degree average launch angle. That's home run trajectory. That's home run upside. So, maybe I'm definitely undercutting Wells at that ownership, and then maybe I'm taking out some shares to chase that part of the field with some of that top end of the Royals. It's not great. They're bad for a reason. They strike out way too much. He could definitely shut them down, but I think there's upside there.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. It really comes with it. Even like Ohtani is 40% owned. That is like almost I guarantee that you're going to find me with a stack of the other team because they're going to come in really low owned. I don't think give up much equity. In this case, the Royals' top owned hitters past Cantino at 1%. So what's 4% of some Royals onslaught stacks for?
And if you're going to take shots at the field, wouldn't you rather do it against Tyler Wells than Shohei Ohtani?
Yeah.
That's just, the more compelling argument to me, I think, is like, yeah, do that. Take shots at the field when some of these pitchers are high owned. But if you can avoid doing that, taking too many of those shots against a guy like Ohtani, against a guy like, Garrett Cole, Christian Javier, or whoever it is, Luis Castillo, same token, it's probably best to do it against guys like Tyler Wells here. So I like that. Granted, you're doing it with a worse lineup than you would be with if you were using Seattle against Ohtani, but much, much better situation pitcher-wise.
Yeah, and I agree. And like you said, home runs are still there for Wells, a 1.8 home run per 9 this year to lefties. And I bring that up because the Royals are going to throw out quite a few lefties. I don't expect a lot of power out of most of these, but Prado, puncher's chance, 171 ISO since the beginning of last year against righties. But Pascantino's there. MJ Melendez, again, high strikeouts, high everything, but you still see home runs a couple once a week. Michael Massey's in the lineup. Drew Waters, who randomly got me a lot of points when I needed a pure panic punt spot. He has a technically has a 212 ISO against righties since the beginning of last year, but it's really just this week. So there's some lefties in that lineup, and it is a massive park upgrade, especially for the lefties going from Kaufman to Camden. So yeah, I can get behind that. And then somebody asked about the Fanduel pitching ownership. So 33% on Ohtani. Wells still comes in number 2. It's not quite as aggressive as DraftKings. He's at 13% ownership on Fanduel. And then third is Monty is third, and then Coley is 8%, and then Castillo is 6%. So weird situation where Castillo's higher than Cole on DK, but the inverse is true on Fanduel. So,
and what did you say Ohtani was, like 30-ish?
Yeah, about 33%.
I tell you right where I'll be is probably about 20 and change percent on Ohtani. Very dramatically undercutting the field on Wells. Couple shares. I don't want to miss the boat completely, but I will undercut the field on Wells, and I will spread those shares across some, some Montgomery, but he said he's popular too, so maybe I'm under the field on him too. And then I'm looking to spread shares across the Garrett Coles, the Dylan Ceases, the Sonny Grays, the Christian Javieres, and the Luis Castillos of the world with some of those value plays on board as well. If the field's that concentrated for ownership with 26 choices on the board, I will spread out as much as possible.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Orioles. Orioles 116 WRC plus as a team this season against lefties. Daniel Lynch sucks. 3.75 expected ERA this year in just 10 innings. So I think we look a lot at what he did last year in 131 innings, and he pitched to a 5.07 expected ERA, 1.57 WHIP, and a 1.46 home run per 9 to righties last year against righties, and then 1.23 against lefties. If he goes back to that guy, and I think it's reasonable to believe that, hey, 10 innings of, and I think all of his innings have been in Kaufman this season. So you put him in a park like Camden, I think the sub 5 run total for the Orioles might be a little trappy. Sure, maybe they're missing some names, but you give me Austin Hayes against the lefties, yes. Adley, yes. Santander, yes. Even Hicksy. James McCann lives to hit lefties, even though he has a 15 WRC plus since the beginning of last year. Jorge Mateo's kind of dropped dramatically, but kind of like Volpe, if he can get on, he can swipe a bag. And I say, for me, bad hitting can beat bad pitching. And I saw that, I think it was yesterday or the day before, because I kind of had this debate on the show the other day. The Brewers, oh man, I forget who they were up against. Just like 2 days ago, they went off on some bad hitting. I think it was a Red Sox pitcher maybe, but I think the Orioles stack is pretty intriguing to me, and they're not grabbing much ownership. Austin Hayes in the leadoff spot's at 8%. Everybody else is at 3% or less. So even a sub stack, you give me Hayes, Santander, Adley, Rushman for an aggregate 5% ownership, maybe 3% ownership. I'm in on that, and I think this could be a fun spot. Again, keep an eye on the smoke and maybe some rain, but if it all plays out, I think the Daniel Lynch is not good, and the Royals bullpen doesn't strike fear into me. So your thoughts on stacking the Orioles?
I don't think it's going to be a spot I go to aggressively, but I agree with you that it's a sneaky spot at those ownership numbers, particularly around those 3 hitters around Hayes, Rushman, and Santander. I love the spot for Hayes in the leadoff spot, particularly at his prices. He projects really well for me, as do the other two. I don't love the back end of the lineup. Like McCann, it's kind of been a minute since McCann was that guy. 200, 247, 375 with 3 homers and 86 opportunities this year. 47.7% hard hit rate is good, but he hasn't done a lot with it. A 175 ISO, 70 WRC plus. A lot worse last year with only 3 homers on the board and 191 plate appearances. Only got 10 of them with a 117 ISO and an 80 WRC plus in 412 tries the year before. It's been a minute for McCann, so I don't know how much I like that part of the lineup. I do think Ramon Urias is underrated. He's easily affordable on both sites with multi-position, so he's a nice piece at 5. You heard my thoughts on Hicks. I think he's playable at price since he's hitting cleanup. It's fine. I don't like it. But you haven't been getting a ton out of Gunnar other than the walks and the correlated scoring. Mateo, like you said, kind of just fell apart after April, like completely fell apart. McKenna at the bottom of the lineup, it's restricted to like the top half and then a couple of moving parts for me, I think. It's not unplayable, and I will have some, but I don't know that I'm as strongly enthused about it as you are. And I'm trying to delay having to tell you that for some strange reason in my model, Daniel Lynch is pulling an okay projection here, which I don't really like. I don't really believe in for any reason. I can't figure out why it would even be. He must be pulling an okay innings projection. Maybe that's what it is. Because it's not the strike. My model knows nothing about his 27% strikeout rate this year. Like, so it's not that from those two games that are that's doing anything. Let me see what his innings is looking like. That's probably where it's coming in. No, it's only a 5 and change innings projection. I don't know. It's a low end version of this Orioles lineup. There are strikeouts. I'm not saying I'm going to go play any Daniel Lynch. Maybe you get away with a couple $6,800 darts in that weird range of the below Tyler, like the Garrett Whitlock range. But I don't like that spot at all. But it might make me a little hesitant to play too many Orioles stacks for whatever reason. You're probably right though.
I mean,
out there to know that you're probably right.
The circle, like it's the beauty of baseball is like their stats to support yes and no. If I had to make a case against it, this version of the Orioles lineup, there's 3 hitters since the beginning of last year, but a positive WRC plus against lefties. So it's there. The one guy that does stick out to me though, Anthony Santander is drawing a pretty high rating in my bomb detector, 3.74. 936 OPS since the beginning of last year against lefties. So that'd be a guy I look out for. On the other side, Salvi is
better for power as a righty against a lefty for his career, right? That's what up. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make sure that was correct. Yeah, so that's a good spot. And those righties, the Austin Hayes play, I love. Like I said, in the leadoff spot, he's having a very nice little season. So I like getting to that. By the way, we skipped over in the Red Sox lineup. Adam Duvall's expected back tonight, so another power bat for the Red Sox in that.
Yeah, and strikeout, home run hitter, but using Yankees, they give
against Garrett Cole. It just seems so well aligned for that weird Adam Duvall home run. He was on fire too. He only played like a week this season, but he's got 4 home runs.
It's nuts. Burt Bondi says O's lineup's looking a little watered down. Lynch could be decent value. Yeah, sounds like Terry's model doesn't disagree with you. Let's see. RC player Cam, shout out to you guys here. And Zach says best pitcher prop today. So I haven't pulled up the props yet. I haven't looked at it. But let me know if that's a PrizePicks specific question. Matriculate on to the next game. Dodgers taking a trip to the expedited pitch clock land of Citizens Bank Park. Excuse me, Ranger Suarez against. I guess it's Michael Grove, but they're going to open Victor Gonzalez. So I'm going to leave Grove in my model here.
Oh, I hadn't even seen that, yeah. Yeah, I've just got Grove.
Yeah, I think it's an opener situation. Let me see. Victor Gonzalez is... Well, I don't know. I just see Victor Gonzalez on Fantasy Labs. But I think it's an opener to Grove situation. Dodgers, pitchers. Yeah, DK has just... Grove as well. Okay. So with that said, the Dodgers have a 4.7 run total. The Phillies 4.6. Suarez on the season's pitching to a 5+ expected ERA, 1.54 WHIP. Inversely, Grove 4.19 expected ERA, 1.52 WHIP. And this is a bandbox, and assuming that the smoke allows them to play. Again, 2 sub-5 run totals for 2 potentially powerhouse hitting teams. We do have Bryce Harper in the Phillies lineup, and leadoff Kyle Schwarber is a different breed. So I think there's no way I would go into the slate without some stacks of either offenses. So with that said, I'm probably not likely to get to either pitcher. How excited are you for the offenses here?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear where your bomb detector is showing the Dodgers, because I'm pulling major power marks for the Dodgers. They draw them on their own just by virtue of how good these guys are at hitting baseballs. But I was a little surprised to see them as high as they are against Ranger Suarez, who is not bad for limiting power. 1.83% home run rate against this year on 89.3 miles an hour average exit velo, some barrels at 7.4%, but nothing egregiously bad in the contact. And then in years past, similar results on better contact marks. 2.27% home run rate last year, 0.96. kind of in a hybrid role, half out of the bullpen, half as a starter 2 years ago. But Suarez is good at limiting power, but the Dodgers are kind of shining through in my model for whatever reason. I understand this more than I understand the Daniel Lynch projection, just because I said like this Dodgers top five is just excellent at hitting home runs and just obliterating baseballs. So I think I'm going to be probably overweight to the field on Dodgers opportunity here.
Darnell
You said,
super
like you
chatted
said, both teams below
$20.
5
Took
in
down
the
every
implied
Yip
runs,
tournament
but
on Wednesday,
high
including the
fours, right?
baller.
We're talking, there's
Shout
like 4-8
out
and
Gun and the
4-7 or
crew.
something like that.
Oh,
So we're talking high fours. We're talking some expectation of offense. I like the Phillies side of things. You do get the lefty opener though, potentially taking the bat out of Schwarber and Harper's hands that first inning. So they'll have to contend with the lefty. It's not tragic. I mean, it's not like it's an elite lefty or anything like that. It's not like they're gonna have Clayton Kershaw coming out of the bullpen or somebody. So I'm fine with going to Phillies here, but you do have that to contend with at the top of the lineup. The Phils are an excellent DFS lineup in my opinion. Schwarber, Castellanos, Bryce Harper, a cheap Trey Turner, 56, 3,000 at shortstop. The $3,000 price on Trey Turner is a bargain on Fanduel. I don't care what he's done so far this year. I care what he's going to do at that price in the future. So we know Trey Turner's a star. Real Muto, Stott, Marsh, Clemens. There's lefty power there in Stott and Marsh and Clemens. Stott, a decent lefty stick for like correlated scoring. So you could even do like a weird mini end of the lineup stack for cheap. If you need a 3-man stack that averages like low 4s, high 3s on DK and mid low 2s on FanDuel, I don't hate those 3 lefties from a back end stack. So there's a lot to do with that Phillies lineup. And then the top 5 at the very least for the Dodgers, Betts, Freeman, Smith, Martinez, and Muncy are just dominant hitters with tons of power. Double-digit home runs for all those guys except Smith. He'll be double digits soon enough. Chris Taylor in the 6th spot I think is interesting. Johnny DeLuca for 2,400 on both sites is interesting. He was hitting a lot in the minors this year before the call-up. So ton to do with the Dodgers lineup. And you still get the FanDuel, I've been harping on them the last couple of days. They had Mookie at 4,000 with his 3-position eligibility. And I was saying that's a high FanDuel price, but it wasn't enough. So now they've got him bumped up, not because I was saying it, obviously, because it's Mookie Betts with 3-position eligibility. They've got him at an appropriate 4,300 now. So they cleaned that up a little bit. I still love him with 3-position eligibility, though. Just the idea of being able to flex him. Chris Taylor also has 3-position eligibility. Miguel Rojas, for whatever it's worth, has 2-position eligibility. But just the flexibility in this Dodgers lineup is outstanding. And obviously the upside. So tons of Dodgers for me. Decent share of Phillies bats. I don't really think I need either one of these pitchers.
Yeah, I throw the pitchers away. I'll keep the bats. My bomb detector, it's modest, but it's not low. The guy that is going crazy in it is Mookie Betts, 3.92, and I'm sure if I look at the park adjusted thing, it might get over 4. So keep an eye on him. But yeah, it's just a lot of talent for a plus environment. And then I just took a peek at the game ownership. The highest owned player in this game is Mookie Betts at 5%. So there is a lot of opportunity at low ownership in Citizens Bank Park for a lot of guys with a lot of pop.
Yeah,
I'm
starting
in.
to seem like the field and I are going to be in very different places. I kind of like it. I mean, I definitely like it. I kind of hope it works.
Yeah, I got to show some love. While you were talking, I know you don't hear it, but we got a bing bong, which means a dono to the show. Darnell, $20 dono, says, took down every Uke tournament on Wednesday, including the baller. Shout out to Gun and the crew. So shout out to Darnell for crushing it. Appreciate the $20 dono. Now you're swinging the biggest D right here on the screen. Chat. Anybody else got a bigger D? Yes, we love innuendos. But yeah, I think we're in full agreement here, man. It's just 2 talented offenses, good park it, and just the opportunity at ownership is just great. So even if it was tougher pitchers, I'd still be here just because of the talent in the park. It's not quite the same as the Dodgers in Cincy. Cincy plays as a crazy home run park, but Citizens Bank is still 14% better than average the last 3 years in generating homers. So this is a great opportunity for a Dodgers team to hit with some pop here. Catching up on chat.
Well worth it.
Yeah. And kind of easy to offset. Fanatic says Schwarber is the only player who gets bumped up in the lineup for playing worse. I mean, I don't know what it is, but Schwarber in the leadoff spot, I don't know if he just gets to sit on fastballs more or what. But Yeah, he does that. And I'll tell you what, I saw Victor Gonzalez. I was pulling up his stats. Now, he does have a 53% ground ball rate this year against lefties, but he has a 35% line drive rate to lefties. And again, maybe the sample size isn't super deep, and a 59% pull rate. He has allowed, I think, 2 homers to lefties in 5.2 innings. So a very, very low sample size, but it's telling us he's not immune to making Harper and Schwarber be auto outs just because it's lefty-lefty, especially Harper. We know he can hit either side of the plate with great numbers. So that doesn't scare me as much as maybe the Dodgers expect it to scare people. So, yeah, offense for me.
Yeah, for sure. And it's worth pointing out that 7 of Schwarber's 16 home runs this year are also against left-handed pitching. So it's not like he's been a total slouch against lefties. He's actually got a higher ISO against lefties this year than against righties. 291 versus 225. WRC plus is a lot lower, 83 versus 110, but the ISO is a lot higher. So Schwarbs could get one.
Yeah, and when they turn it around and do get into Michael Grove, Schwarber's coming in with a 3.95 bomb detector rating for me. Harper with a 4, and I without looking, I already know that's going to be 2 of the highest with sample size because Michael Grove struggles to get left-handed pitching out and struggles to keep him in the park at a more neutral park like Dodger Stadium. So good luck in Citizens Bank. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, 2 of the highest guys in my home run model as well. So definitely with you on that one.
We'll move on to Mets and the Pirates. We do have a Pirates lineup. It is Rich Hill taking on Tyler Megill. 4.8 run total for the Mets. 4.9 for the Pirates. I mean, that's higher than the Dodgers and Phillies. So that's interesting out there in PNC Park. Megill's pitching to a 5.8 expected ERA, 1.62 WHIP. Rich Hill 5.4 expected ERA, 1.38 WHIP. Rich Hill has a very high called strike rate for a curveball specialist. I'll tell you what. 7.8% swing and strike rate for him with a 21% K rate. And then Megill a 17.9% K rate, down from the last 2 years where he's had an average 25% K rate. This Pirates lineup is confirmed. We got Marcano, Reynolds, McCutchen. Santana is in the cleanup spot. We got Jack Sawinski batting 5th. Brian Hayes in the 6th spot. Ji-Hwan Bae, Josh Palacios, and Austin Hedges coming in. Still waiting on this Mets lineup. It seems like Pete Alonso is hurt, right? They popped his wrist.
Yeah, they put him on the IL.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a big bopper out of this Mets lineup. A lot of run creation, but it could create an opportunity for Francisco Alvarez, who I know his lefty splits so far are bad, but I'm not buying into that. This guy is a beast. Projected lineup puts him in the 2-hole. Somebody had asked earlier about favorite catchers on the slate, and I haven't assessed like the position itself because that's not really how I research. But it feels like Francisco Alvarez is building a case that he should not be 3,500 on DraftKings and 2,900, especially if he does end up batting second. So that could be a really good opportunity if you're just looking for a positional guy that could be a good bang for your buck, because that could be 5 at bats here. Bing bong.
Mamba super chatted $23.
Mamba.
Just showing off
We
my
got.
D. Roll for both. What is the total ownership you allocate on 13-gram slates?
All right, we got it. We got a good old-fashioned D-off chat. Mamba says, what is the total ownership you allocate on 13-game slate? So I think I've heard you talk about this. I don't touch it. For baseball, I don't mess with like ownership caps or anything like that, because especially with a slate like this, it's just so spread out anyway. I just let the randomness do the job for me. With like, I set my how a percentage of stacks that I want, pitcher ownership, stuff like that. But I don't ever mess with setting ownership caps, and maybe I'm making a mistake. How do you approach that?
So when I'm building the lineups, I do set like the optimizer, whatever optimizer you're using. Like I'll set it so that I have, X percent, so that I get like a fairly even distribution through all the different available stacks, so that I'm getting the mix and match combinations that I want of the different, the Padres in Coors Field with
Right.
10 of the different options or 12 or 15 of the different out of 25 other options. I want to have a broad cross section of that. So I want to be able to, make sure it's getting that. But yeah, when I'm looking at like, what's the, I don't know if that question means like, what's the total ownership in a lineup? Like, do you have a ownership sum number that you're worried about exceeding, like 200 total ownership sum? I don't worry about anything like that. I do not care about it. If it goes through my process and comes out the other side, it's already accounted for. I do think that you in building lineups, you do want to focus on making sure you're getting a couple guys in there that are lower owned. But I don't think it's, people worry too much about ownership on an individual sense and then on a team basis, rather than looking at like this combination of these hitters is not going to be all that popular, even though they're both coming from popular teams and I'm rostering it with a popular pitcher, it'll still probably be a unique lineup. I had a unique lineup to finish fifth the other day. I never really worry about unique. You worry about ownership more in baseball for like leverage purposes over the field. But I had a lineup the other day that I used as an example that landed in fifth. It was a good lineup, and it had every single hitter was owned more than 10%, but less than 20%. And a couple, or not every, there were two guys, I think it was like Tatis and Soto, were above 20%. And then every other hitter was in that like between 10 and 20% range. And it was a fairly popular pitcher. And it's not going to be duped just because there are so many unique combinations available in baseball that I don't worry about the ownership sum in any individual lineup, I think is what the question was asking.
Yeah, I think that's how I interpret it. Is like the sum of the total lineup ownership.
Yeah.
But like, I definitely put my hands on the stack ownership, the combined stack ownership, stuff like that. I care more about that than the sum of the lineup itself. So I think we're on the same page. Yep. Anyway, back to the Mets and Pirates. So with the Mets, being without Alonso, certainly a lot of power from the right side of the plate taken out, and they're going to be leaning on potentially guys like Tommy Pham. Maybe Eduardo Escobar gets a sneaky bump in the lineup. And then Mark Vientos. I want to bring up Mark Vientos, not necessarily as like I don't know, not touting him specifically, but I have this tab in my spreadsheet called the regression tracker, which basically takes all the StatCast metrics from hitters and looks at their, average, expected average, slugging, expected slugging. Vientos was one of the larger sample size cases of slug differential from his actual slugging to his expected slugging. If I sorted in the spreadsheet, he was fourth overall. He is actually slugging 243, but his expected slug is 508. And he has a 12% barrel rate. So maybe soon he'll start realizing some of that potential. Just a 5.2 average launch angle, I'm sure that's been a problem. But just a name that, because it's likely to be in the lineup today, that I might make a point to click, because I'm sure projection models won't account for that. But he is kind of cheap. So what are we doing with this game where both teams have higher run totals than Dodgers and Phillies? We are confirmed on the Pirates. Any of these stacks interesting you? And I guess not to bury the pitchers. Any pitcher interesting to you? I right now just surface stats. I'd probably be leaning out, but you're a little bit more creative with pitching than I am on fighting.
I wouldn't begrudge anybody shares of Rich Hill at 75, 78, pitching well enough. You know what you're getting with Rich Hill. The 4.41 ERA and 4.44 xFIP for the season are right on point for who he is. The 21.6% strikeout rate, same story. You get a diminished version of the Mets lineup with no Pete Alonso. I don't really care where the Tommy Phams and Mark Canhas and struggling Starling Martes and Eduardo Escobars of the world land in the order. They're all going to be in there. So it's definitely a downgraded version of kind of an already scuffling Mets lineup overall. You still got to worry about Lindor. You still got to worry about Nimmo. Alvarez has obviously been dominant. Totally agree with what you said before about him, by the way. 11 home runs, a 307 ISO in his 137 plate appearances. Hit 2 more last night. Just the kid has played his way into the full-time job in Queens as the catcher and won't give that job up for a decade. He's top end prospect who was came up early and has totally delivered beyond expectations. So love that kid. I do hope he's hitting second. I also hope that Vientos is hitting a little higher in the lineup. Like, they should have him maybe hit fifth instead of Mark Canha like is projected, and see what you can get out of that power bat. Totally agree that there's more power coming for him. It is difficult to post a 243 slugging percentage and a .081 ISO on an 11.5% barrel rate and 65.4% hard hits. It's only 39 plate appearances, so that's why in the minors this year, in 166 plate appearances before he got called up, 13 home runs, a 355 ISO in AAA. So a premium power hitter, 24 home runs in the minors last year, or in AAA last year, plus another one in the majors. So just a handful of minor league seasons on the way up with plenty of power on display. So very much believe in Vientos. We'll see what we get there. Hopefully you get the version of the lineup that has both Brett Beatty and Mark Vientos in it. Like, but just let's get both these premium bats, these young kids into the lineup. I think we've seen enough of Eduardo Escobar at this point.
Yeah. Eduardo's still my Cinderella against lefties guy, but they never. There was like once this season where he batted top 6 against a lefty, or second or third. I want to say maybe it was Rich. It was some lefty that he had crazy BVP, and chat was like talking BVP, and I'm in a anti-BVP stance. And then that night he goes out there and gets shut out. So suck it, BVP. Let me look at ownership from either one of these teams.
While you look at that, just on the pitching front, if we had the version of Tyler McGill guaranteed that was a 25% strikeout, 26% strikeout guy from the last 2 years at these prices against the Pirates, sure, I would fire away. But the 17.9% strikeout guy we've got this year with, very ugly, a 5+ xFIP in about 60 innings, yeah, I don't think we need it even at price. 6,700, I think you can put him in that mix of guys like Garrett Whitlock. Like if you're taking out 25 shares of Garrett Whitlock, maybe instead of doing that, you throw 5 of them Tyler McGill's way and spread out a couple more to some of those other guys in that price range. But it's not great for McGill. He'd be one of my least favorite guys in that group.
Looking at ownership, maybe surprising. The Pirates are picking up a little steam. At least 4 of the Pirates are 7% or higher owned. 3 of them 9% or higher. Marcano, Sawinski, Ji-Hwan Bae, and then Brian Reynolds being the 7% guy. Everybody else 2% or less. So Pirates, I mean, that's not nothing on a slate this size against
not
McGill.
The names I was expecting to hear when you said popular guys. I want shares of Brian Reynolds, Andrew McCutchen, and Jack Sawinski. Everybody else I'll take or leave in that lineup. Those are the productive hitters in my mind. Those are the guys. All 3 of those guys are above a 10 in my home run model, which gives them a nice chance for against Tyler McGill here. So I'll take shares of them, and then I can mix and match shares of. Santana has been so bad this year. I don't know that I want him. It's weird that they slid him up ahead of Sawinski into the cleanup spot. Like, why jam a guy who's been lousy this year into the middle of your best home run hitter and your most productive hitters? That doesn't really make sense. And then the back end, like Brian Hayes, I love the hard hit rate, but never delivers at the plate really. 250, 295, 404, 88 WRC plus, 4 homers, 6 steals. Ji-Hwan Bae steals bases, Palacios edges. Yeah, it's really about those 3 hitters in the Pirates lineup for me.
Yeah, inversely, Mets 11% on Francisco, 8% on Lindor, says 7% on Alonso, so I'm sure this is going to be reshuffled, and everybody else 5% or less. So a little bit. And a lot of it, I think it is maybe position scarcity on the catcher spot if he is batting second. I think the field is kind of smartened up on that situation. Getting caught up on chat. What up, KJ? Dennis was asking about Escobar right as I was talking about him. RC player says, yo, go, and Kyle Garlick got some nice BVP tonight. Can I get a mod to time out RC player? 600 seconds, sit in the corner, think about what you just said. I'm just kidding. Sean V says, Riley is just on fire, can't get away. We've seen these from Ramirez is coming off a 3-dong game. I'll pass today. I don't roster anyone coming off of 3-dong games. I don't have time.
It doesn't have anything to do with today, but I will say that was half of his home run total. It was a third. He hit a third of his 9 home runs of the season last night. So I mean, he was struggling going into yesterday. I think he had some specific opinions about that kid that was pitching for the Red Sox, and he wanted to take it out on him. That was my guess.
Luckily, he was my highest owned third baseman. Unluckily, I also had a ton of Yordan Alvarez. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, Yordan just went on the IL before too, by the way, while we were on the show. So.
Yikes. Garlic is...
So how could Kyle Garlick have good BVP against anybody as if that was a thing anyway? He's made 373 total plate appearances in his entire career. That's not enough of a sample to get BVP against one pitcher as a reliable statistic, let alone the entire game.
I'm sure RC was joking, but he's 3 for 5, 2 bombs in there. We do have some BVP truthers that'll pop around, but
I'm sure.
But, let's move on to the next game here. Where are we at? 100 viewers, guys. You guys want to do me a favor, smack that like button. And while you're doing that, I remind you guys that, first of all, Terry is operating rotoscouts.com. Free articles, free content daily. He's got a free Discord as well. Free. And you've seen this business model before. People put out, they get the dealer is giving you some free supply, gonna get you hooked. Well, we might as well get the free stuff while it's there, and then when the supply becomes behind a paywall, hey man,
First one's always free.
So go check him out, rotoscouts.com. While you're thinking about it, if you could pop open a new tab, type in Rotoscouts on YouTube, give him a sub. He's doing a lot of free content on the YouTube channel throughout the week. You cover every slate, don't you? It feels like, when's the last time you took
Just
a
the
day
main
off?
slate. Every day,
Okay.
every day is main slate. So whatever the two sites designate, if there's a disagreement, I'll probably be whatever Fanduel calls the main slate. Like if it's a 6 games in the afternoon, 6 games at night, and Fanduel calls their night slate the main slate. DK typically has a large enough prize pool for what they'll call their night slate that I'll just treat it as their main slate. So it's typically main slate focused though.
Okay. And then, so you did one yesterday, right? Yeah.
Yep.
That
Every
was
single day,
four
yeah.
game.
Trying to do
Yeah.
content every day, regardless, but always dedicated toward those main slates.
So I might be a little bit more lazy when it comes to putting out streams. So if you're ever fiending for some baseball stuff, you don't see Gun on, go check out Terry as well. Sure. We don't overlap a ton, but sometimes this week we've been overlapping. But go give him a sub over there, and then maybe one of these days I'll hop on your channel and maybe we can
that'd be fun.
Get more people.
For sure.
So go check out all that, and then rundfs.com. We've got a couple memberships over here. We've got 4 memberships to choose. The best bang for your buck, and I don't know how much longer we're gonna leave it up. $249 for the rest of the year. That's not just the rest of the baseball season. That's gonna pick up the beginning of the basketball season, the beginning of the NFL, and there's a lot of NFL that's done before January 1st. You also get a $100 credit towards Fantasy Cruncher. This is just some love for the dog days of summer grinders. That's not going to be there in September. It's going to look a little bit different. So go check that out. Get in the premium Discord and get access to the spreadsheet. So let's move it on. Steve says Terry and Gunn do love some baseball. It's appreciated. I appreciate you for appreciating us. Next game, we got the Twins against the Blue Jays. Sonny Gray taking on Yusei Kikuchi. Twins projected or implied run total 4.2. Blue Jays 4.5. Sonny Gray pitching to a 3.69 expected ERA, a 2.15 actual ERA, 25% K rate, 18% called strike rate. Kikuchi on the other side, 5.41 expected ERA, 23% K rate. I think we've kind of flirted with the idea of Kikuchi a few times already. We are going to be dancing with the devil if we roster him because he is Kikuchi, but Twins offer some metrics that we can justify. 91 WRC plus, first of all. Secondly, no Byron Buxton in the lineup, and the strikeout rates for the Twins on the season as a team's been 27%. I'll put this confirmed lineup in. Maybe the actual lineup has less strikeouts than they performed on the season. But you've mentioned him a few times. I think one of the game theories behind him is just kind of comparing him to the chalkiest guy at that price range, which is Tyler Wells. And Kikuchi comes in at 15%, which is actually higher than I would expected. And then inversely, Sonny Gray, Sonny Gray is less than 1%. There's no way I don't take a chance on that.
All day long.
100%.
Even against this killer Blue Jays lineup that I will also go to, somebody's missing from the Blue Jays lineup. No George Springer for the Blue Jays. Bobichette leading off, Laddie Guerrero, Brandon Belt, Chapman, Merrifield, Varsho, Espinal, Biggio, and Heineman. So, yeah, take George Springer off the top. I like it even more. I will definitely take ownership-based shares of Sonny Gray. He projects in the top, call it 6, 7 of my board here, depending on where I move Daniel Lynch to. But Sonny projects better than Tyler Wells for 100 less on the FanDuel slate for me. I will definitely take shots if he's that low owned. I don't care that he's going up against the Blue Jays. He's pitching well enough anyway. Good enough pitcher over an extended period of time, regardless of any bias I have against him from his Yankees days. 2.15 ERA, 3.52 xFIP, 25.4% strikeouts, 11.1% swinging, 29.2% CSW. He's given up 1 home run in 12 starts. I'll throw that on the fire there. Vladdy Guerrero has hit 0 home runs in their home park this year out of his 9 that he's only hit. 9 home runs, a 172 ISO for Vladdy, despite his massive 14% barrel rate, 55.5% hard hits. It's been a weird little season for him. Maybe some cap on the strikeout upside for Gray, but on the idea of some clean innings for that price and nobody on him, I'll definitely go there. The Kikuchi plays the weird one. He gives up massive amounts of power. 6.49% home run rate in 12 starts this year. 92.1 miles an hour of average exit velo. 48.1% hard hits. 12.2% barrels. He strikes out only 22.9% this year. That's down. He was at least a little bit more acceptable at 27.3% strikeouts over 102 thirds last year. He was giving up a little less power. 5.07% home run rate. 91.6 miles an hour average exit velo. Similar hard hits, more barrels. Year before, similar story, but only a 4.05% home run rate, 24.5% strikeouts. The idea here would be it's just brutal for strikeouts in that Twins lineup, like you suggested. The confirmed lineup, if you take out the 33 and 28 plate appearance samples, guys, the confirmed lineup has a 27.2% strikeout rate. If you leave those two guys in, it goes up to 29.2. Those two guys are Kyle Garlick, who we talked about before, and Royce Lewis. There is power potential even with the studs out of the lineup in Byron Buxton, Joey Gallo, no Max Kepler. Kyle Garlick does lead the team in my home run model for the BVP in the crowd. 14.90 in the old home run model puts him at a nice chance to hit you a home run for the dead minimum at 2,000, just based on the matchup here. But it's such a weird, bad version of this lineup that I don't think I can go to many Twins, and I think it lends upside to that Kikuchi play, which is probably why he's gaining steam and popularity. So it would be reluctant shares of Kikuchi, and if he gets too popular, particularly on Fanduel, I don't need to go there. On DK 7,100, I think you kind of want him in your pool of value pitchers at the very least, and then play the game where you're going over or under the field, appropriate to whatever you want. But there's a big time strikeout upside for him. They could hit 4 home runs against him. You could get the weird Brian Jeffers home run day. Kyle Farmer hits a home run. Kyle Garlick hits a home run, and they're off and running. And Kikuchi's shot. But if you're going to attack the Twins, this is the version of the Twins lineup to do it against.
Kyle Garlick third on the entire slate in my bomb detector. And this is what irks me, because when he homers, people are going to go up with BVP dancing in the streets. And like, no. Just give me the bat and ball data.
It's just a combination of a guy who does have power and can put bat on ball, and a guy who loves to let hitters do exactly that. 14.90 puts him 10th on my board. He would be in the top 10. I get most of the Dodgers and most of the Braves ahead of him, basically, is the scenario. He's Schwarber's up there. Nando Tatis is up there, and then he's outside of those two guys, he's the first non-Dodger or Brave on the board.
I have a fun lane in this Twins lineup that is actually projecting decently for me for power and a lot of crazy WRC plus numbers, and that's 3 through 7, really 3 through 6. 3.8 or better in my bomb detector. A lot of almost an aggregate 900 OPS. So I think if Kikuchi's 15%, I will have some of these who are they Twins stacks. Not much. Maybe I'll get to like 3%, 4%. Let's see what kind of ownership we're dealing with. But
how much Michael A. Taylor for the dead minimum hitting 9th in this spot is too much Michael A. Taylor? 8 home runs and 170 plate appearances. Always does it to break a slate at no ownership. Like, this is such a...
Usually in Yankee Stadium. It's just whatever.
Yeah, right? This is such a one of those, like, everybody else goes completely pop and Michael A. Taylor hits 2 home runs for the dead minimum at, like, no ownership kind of a spot. It just feels like that. But, yeah, I'm totally with you on those that lane of hitters being the guys that you want if you're going to this Twins lineup. I'll put it that way. They show probably a little bit less quality in my model, but that's definitely where the quality is. And I agree that that's where you would want to go. So, yeah, maybe a little bit more. It just depends on where their ownership falls overall. But, like, a Royce Lewis is not bad. I wish he was hitting higher in the lineup. I don't really understand hitting Royce Lewis 7th and Kyle Farmer 5th. I think I would flip that if I was making this lineup. But it's okay. There's enough spots there, and they're cheap. Especially on FanDuel. They're very, very cheap. Actually, no. DK, they're very cheap as well.
Yeah, very cheap.
A lot of twos in those numbers.
Lead off Donovan Solano is 2,200. That's a good price, and he leads the team in ownership at 6%. Willie Castro 6%, Farmer 5%. So it's about about a 5% aggregate stack. So not nothing, but not something. I'll get the 5.
I tell you what, it's going to probably end up coming up a decent amount for me now that I'm thinking it through, just based on where the Dodgers and the Braves and team like those are projected in my model and how much they cost. I'm going to be force-fed some of these value stacks, and this is probably going to be one of them now that I'm thinking it through. And that's fine. I'll take my shots against Kikuchi. I almost always come down on the anti-Kikuchi throw bats at Kikuchi side of things. So if that's where I end up, I'm all right with it. I just don't like this version of this Twins lineup all that much, and his potential for strikeouts against them is significant.
On the other side, Brandon Belt leads the Blue Jays in ownership, 3%, Bichette 2%, Vladdy 2%, everybody else under 1%. So we have an unstoppable force, a movable object situation where no one's stacking the Blue Jays, no one's playing Sonny Gray, field for maybe afraid to make a decision, but sub 1% Sonny Gray, I'm definitely in on that. But again, like you could play both sides and have maybe a combined 6% equity that you actually have to give up. Sonny Gray, 90 pitches in his last game. He has gone as many as 105 as of late. Like we said, this big stretch of games, this last 4 games have not been great. Cleveland, not a big strikeout matchup. I usually can forgive pitchers that have down games against Cleveland. At Houston, only 3 strikeouts there. San Francisco got more than a K per inning, and then the Dodgers. So strength of schedule really wasn't on his side in terms of one matchup like a team like the Dodgers. Cleveland sucks, but like we said, they're scrappy. They don't strike out. He gave up 10 hits that game, and then the Astros, a lot of ground balls still. 11-5 ground ball to fly ball ratio against Cleveland. 10-3 against Houston. So that's going to come around in his favor sooner or later, and it's easy to be on both sides here. So this is a unique game. Kikuchi at 15%, I'll have to meditate on, because it's one of those plays. Yeah. If I play it and he implodes, I'm just like, well, it's Yusei Kikuchi. So that's what I get. And
that's it. And if the field is there, like we've touched on so many times, there's just a bunch of guys in that kind of a price range. At 71 on DK, you can go to a lot of different options in the 6s and the low 7s there. Like, I don't want to short sell the opportunity for the Braves starter that we'll talk about, I assume, at some point, AJ Smith/Schwarber here at 6,500. That kid is a potentially dominant strikeout pitcher going up against the Washington Nationals at 6,500. I could replace every single share of Yusei Kikuchi and be happy about it if the field isn't there. So there's a lot of different directions to take those value SP2s. You don't necessarily need to get in bed with 15% of the field on a guy like Kikuchi today.
Yeah. Before we move forward, let's go backward a little bit. The Mets lineup is out. It looks like the same cast of characters, maybe just a little bit different order. Escobar batting 8th, and Vientos still in that 9 spot. Don't see any surprises. Alvarez, though, confirmed batting 2nd, so that should validate his projected ownership. And again, I think the price is a little too cheap. Brandon Nimmo leading off here. Pham, Lindor, McNeil. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
All right,
like Pham and Kana are playable parts in there. McNeil's a slap hitter. Starling Marte's been a slap hitter who hasn't done much at all this season. Was kind of coming around in his batting average, but yeah, not great for the Mets tonight.
Astros up against the Guardians. Christian Javier taking on Logan Allen. Astros are going to be leading off with Mauricio Dubon. Altuve. Breggy is back. Kyle Tucker. We mentioned earlier that Yordan Alvarez taking a stint to the IL. Jeremy Pena down to the 7th spot. Yanier Diaz in the 8th spot. Martin Maldonado in the 9th spot. So definitely a big hit to that lineup to not have a bat like Alvarez, but still some quality hitters in this lineup with some low K rates. On the other side, Guardians, Stephen Kwan, Rosario, J-Ram, Naylor, Bell, Jimenez, Will Brennan, Mike Zunino, Miles Straw. So as projected, love when that happens. The Astros have a 4.1 implied run total. Guardians 4.1. Out there in Cleveland, I've noticed it's been a lot cooler than just about everywhere else. About 70 degrees, so there's going to be some parks that play in the mid-high 80s, so that's been a plus to pitchers. We've also seen some breezes in. Christian Javier, 4.25 expected ERA this season, sub-1 whip, a 26% K rate. Just talked about how the Guardians The Guardians and Nationals kind of remind me of each other, where this season they haven't been world beaters, but they also are so scrappy, they don't strike out, and that can be annoying because you just want to pitch against bad teams, but when they paper cut you, or they just don't give you these strikeouts, and you do give up that inevitable 1 or 2 runs, it's hard to erase that. But Javier is a guy with some strikeout potential. He does have a 12% barrel rate. Maybe this lineup won't hit for quality contact. Javier also a heavy fly ball guy. What's, I guess, most interesting about Javier is when we look at field ownership on pitchers, Javier is coming in just like Sonny Gray, under 1%. Oh, which tempts me. It tempts me. And then Logan Allen, no ownership for him as well. He is at, there is some ownership, 10% for him. No, there is. It's at 10%. All right. So this is it's a very unique spot. Where are you leaning?
I will definitely push more chips on Christian Javier in that situation. If he's going to be that low owned, it's another spot that I don't care that he's facing a low strikeout Guardians lineup. I believe in his talent to find me enough strikeouts to get through to a decent score here. I believe in his depth of start. 69 2/3 in 12 starts is enough innings pitched that he can chase my quality start bonus for me on Fanduel. And if nobody's going to be there, he's just as strong an option as like Garrett Cole or Shohei Ohtani in a tough matchup. Certainly as good or better an option than the Tyler Wellses or the Sonny Grays of the world. So yeah, Christian Javier, definite interest, 26.4% strikeouts. What I love about him is he doesn't put himself in bad situations most of the time. Only a 5.9% walk rate this year. That's cut down from 8.9% last year. That was a little bit high, but still kind of good for a guy who was striking out 33.2% last year. The strikeouts have come down to 26.4%. Still a very good level, but the whip is 0.99. The walks aren't there. I think Javier has a good opportunity to post a strong game here. The prices are high, 10-8 on both sites. It's definitely, you're paying a premium for him in a tough strikeout matchup. But I just like the idea for clean innings. This Guardians team has been so low end for run creation this year that if you don't run into a 3 home run night from Jose Ramirez, there's upside just on the idea of 7 innings, a win, a quality start bonus, and even if it's a small handful of strikeouts here. If you don't get the monster game from the Otanis or Castillos of the world, Garrett Cole, I think Christian Javier could be right there, even if he doesn't find a massive strikeout total against the Guardians. And then I think Logan Allen on the other side, especially in DK at 77, is interesting against this Astros lineup. You get Altuve to worry about, you get Kyle Tucker to worry about, but no Jordan is a major hit for this lineup, and then everybody else is kind of underperformed. Bregman's okay. He's got 9 home runs on the season, a 113 WRC+, but the power hasn't really been there in general. Only a 153 ISO, a 3.4% barrel rate, 35.9% hard hits. His 9 home runs seems more like kind of happenstance than anything else here. Abreu's been terrible. Jeremy Pena's not been playing like he was last year. Yainer Diaz, Martin Maldonado down the bottom end. I think we've got upside for Allen at 7,700. He's definitely a strong candidate to take over some of those like Kikuchi and Tyler Wells shares if I was playing on DK. He's a different play at 9,300 on FanDuel. I don't think he's totally off the board. 23.9% strikeout rate, 6.6% walks, 12.7% swinging, a 2.76 ERA to a 3.78 xFIP. Hasn't allowed a lot of power or home runs. I like Logan Allen. I think he's a good long-term pitcher. He works in like the mid-90s, but a lot of really effective, breaking and off-speed stuff. So I think there's upside for him, especially at that DK price.
Yeah, both stacks, by the way, capping out as a 5% individual owned player. So it's one of those kind of low owned games, generally speaking. So if you just want to get some contrarian attachment to it, it's there.
What happened to the home run futures board with Jordan, Pete Alonso, and Aaron Judge all hitting the IL probably for extended stints in the same week this week? I would imagine you got some opportunity on that home run futures board.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it. Maybe
it's not something I do. I don't bet that much, but that just popped into my head with all 3 of those guys jumping on the IL this week.
I wish there was more definitive. The Yankees are the biggest liars when it comes to injuries. It's just been that way. They don't tell the truth.
I don't expect Judge until August.
Really?
Late July, August. Yeah, I think this is like a 6-week injury. I think his toe is legit broken.
Yeah, well, if it is, then they're definitely lying because they said it's specifically not broken, just bruised or contused, which hits.
Yeah, and the ligament stretched and this and that. I think his toe's legit screwed. I'm expecting 4 to 6 weeks.
I would sue the Dodgers. Sue the Dodgers. for putting a concrete lip in the ground. What's wrong with you people? Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's move on. Well, we gotta make up some ground here. We're only like barely halfway through it. Oh man! All right, Nationals lineup. Yeah, Nats and the Braves. So Nats are throwing Josiah Gray. You mentioned AJ Smith-Shawver. So I didn't do it. Usually when I get to guys like him, I research them live on the air. Sounds like you've already got a head start since you wrote 8 articles, eight books this morning. What do you know about AJ Smith-Shawver?
So it's in my article over on Roto Scouts, but I got this up in front of me now, so I'll just go directly out of there. One thing I know is that he's not yet legal to drink alcoholic beverages. He is only 20 years old. He was pitching in high school in 2021. Debuted in the Braves system the same year at age 18. Dominated A-ball that year, 68 and 2/3. The next year, 68 and 2/3 and 17 starts in 2022. 34.4% strikeout rate with 103 total strikeouts in 68 and 2/3 innings. This year started in high A, made 3 starts, 44.2% strikeouts. Double A, 2 starts, 7 innings, 31% strikeouts. Another 2 starts in Triple A, 12 innings, 27.7% strikeouts. He didn't allow any runs over the 21 and change innings in high A and double A. Didn't allow any runs until he got to triple A. Allowed a couple of them. So he was pitching great through the minors. He is potentially a dominant fastball slider guy. He's going to be able to sit there and pick Spencer Strider's brain. I love the long-term upside for this kid, but potentially a very high-end strikeout play today that is possibly sneaky. I don't know what his ownership looks like, but at 6,500 on DK, I think there's definite opportunity there. You don't give him probably more than 5 innings, but I think there's upside there. 7,200 on Fanduel. If I'm not getting 5 innings, I question it on such a deep slate, but definitely one to watch at the very least in terms of his potential.
So he's coming in at 1.8% owned, really low. There's an opportunity. Nats, like I said, a little scrappy when it comes to striking out. This lineup is for hunting strikeouts. Lane Thomas, Jamer Candelario, Alex Call, the only guys that hit 20% or better. Joey Meneses is right about 20%. But, again, elite strikeout guys will just find them. And especially a guy like him who there's not a lot of big league film on. So even some of those non-strikeout guys, they need to build up an eye for it. So could be an opportunity, definitely an ownership opportunity that I don't mind getting to at 6,500 in relative to some of the higher owned guys we've seen that we do have a bigger tape on. And I'm always cautious grabbing new pitchers at the major league level anyway, but at 1.8%, 2%, I'll definitely take a chance on that.
And he's one of those premium plus fastball plus slider types that is just very difficult to hit with no book on him, like what you were just talking about there. I think he fits that to a T. He did have 2 1/3 out of the pen earlier in the season. He came up, I think it was a little while ago. It might have been, actually, no, I'm sorry. I'm wrong about that. It was just like last week or something. But struck out 3 in 2 1/3 clean innings. Didn't allow a hit, didn't allow a run.
Yeah. I guess it just comes down to a pitch count and then how he's feeling. Josiah Gray on the bump for the Nats. The Braves have a 6-run total. Not the only team with a 6-run total today. One of them is the Milwaukee Brewers. Mind you, we still have Coors Field on the slate, and there's a team there with a 7-run total. But Braves taking Josiah Gray, 4.5 expected ERA, 1.42 WHIP, and we've seen Josiah Gray allow a lot of power the last couple of years. This year, the lefty power, results-wise, hasn't been there, but I don't know that I'm buying it, because he has pretty similar batted ball data to last year, maybe a little bit lower on the fly ball rate, but he's still Josiah Gray, and this is a Braves lineup I like. The confirmed lineup is also out. You got to go up there and get him on DraftKings. 6,500 for Acuna, 5,800 for Matt Olson. But if you buy into a guy like AJ Smith-Shawver, that'll offset that price point pretty quickly. With this type of run total, definitely got to take a pulse reading on ownership here. Braves are... Wow, they are owned. Acuna at 6,500, more than some pitchers I'm going to play, is 23% on DraftKings. Wow.
That is crazy ownership. It's justifiable, but I mean, that is high. That's difficult at that point. I still want him. I still want a lot of them, but like if you undercut that by, 5, 8, 10%, somewhere around there, and just play like a good amount of Acuna, not a crazy aggressive amount of Acuna when there's 26 teams to choose from, you're probably doing it a little bit better than those people. But damn, it is a great opportunity. Josiah Gray, like you said, cleaned it up a little bit there because it was kind of because he changed his pitch mix. He was throwing his meaty fastball a little bit less, resulting in a little bit less home runs. That lasted for like 5 or 6 starts, and I think the book just kind of caught up on him. 1 home run in 2 starts ago, 2 home runs the last time out, pulling major home run upside for the Braves. They were, I believe, the top team in my model, in the home run model. Marcelo Ozuna was my home run pick for the day, 13.95 in my home run model, 12 on the year. You've just got so many guys in this lineup with double-digit home runs. There's bargain prices up and down. Eddie Rosario hitting 5th for 3,100, 2,700 can be in my lineups. He's got 8 homers, 253, 278, 458 as like the worst power hitter on the team, 205 ISO. Ozzy Albies never gets enough love, and he's only 4,400, 3,000 at second base. Guy's got 14 home runs this year, a 231 ISO. I don't understand why he's unpopular and cheap on a lot of slates. So I'm happy to go to this Braves lineup up and down, and I'm going to hope that just the sheer combinations of it, like what we talked about before, kind of cleans up some of that popularity problem for me, because I definitely want to be in business with the Braves tonight in this spot. I think it's a great, great opportunity.
Everyone not named Orlando Arcia, Marcelo Ozuna, and Eddie Rosario is 14% or higher owned on the Braves.
That's great.
tonight.
Those are 3 of my favorite plays on this team. I love that. I will take so many shares of Orlando Arcia, especially on Fanduel. You get him at 3 positions for 2,700. I love that. That is music to my ears as far as how I roster this team.
0% on Ozuna, man. I know you like that. That's your call. All right, so let's move on from this game again. Trying to make up some time. Brewers hosting the Athletics.
Not lucky if any Nats, right?
Not for me.
Yeah, their upside comes against lefties, in my opinion.
I agree. Not for me. Athletics and the Brewers. Sam Mole taking on Adrian Hauser. A 3.8 run total for the Athletics, and then, like I said, a staggering 6 run total for the Brewers. But the Athletics have turned into basically Course on wheels, where their bullpen is so bad that they just give up big games. So I get it. Brewers have been bad, but we saw them hit a bad pitcher the other day. Sam Mole on the bump to start things off. So far in 21 innings, just a 2% barrel rate, 26% K rate, even though it's handcuffed to an 8.2% swing and strike rate, so you might expect that number to regress.
I think we're only getting Mole for an inning anyway, though. The reason the run total is so high is because Luis Medina is coming in after him.
Oh boy, let me just put Medina in the spreadsheet then. Jesus.
Yeah, so Mole's a pure single inning reliever. Like you said, the strikeout rates. Medina 4.81 xFIP underneath an 8.19 ERA for the season, only striking out 19.1% over 29 2/3. 6 total appearances. You can fire away with Brewers bats, in my opinion here.
Yeah.
Are they stupid popular also?
I'm about to check that out. I mean, when you see numbers like the Braves, you can't imagine too many teams are going to compete with that. And the Brewers have been so bad all year. A little bit.
That's not out yet. Damn. That's going to be the curveball here. Is do we get the weird John Singleton, Blake Perkins, guys like that in this lineup, where we can maybe pick off a couple cheap prices on guys who are, very low end quad A minor league type players, but will be in the lineup maybe for cheap. It's not projected to be that version of the lineup, but they've been doing some funky things over there batting order wise lately. So that'll be a question.
A little bit of ownership, 12% on Adames, 10% on Contreras. Everybody else about 9% or less, but still, it's there. It's not.
It's high for such a big slate, but it's not terrible. And you get, like, if Rowdy's hitting late in the lineup, I imagine he's probably going to be low owned. Inexpensive Luis Urias late in the lineup, who just came back to the lineup. People might be sleeping on him. 16 homers last year, 23 the year before from Urias, multi-position, second, third on DK, 3 positions for 2,300 on FanDuel. That's an interesting bet.
Adrian Hauser on the bump for the Brewers, 1.4 whip, 3.8 expected ERA, 14% K rate. I mean, this is the bad hitting, bad pitching combination of a lifetime. People burned by Mitch Keller. Now the Athletics, as bad as they've been, a lot of that is the pitching. But I've been able to stumble into some slates with some Noda, some Seth Brown, Jason Base Peterson, former Yankee legend, I think he played for the Brewers too. I mean, there's some bats in there to maybe tap into Hauser's contact profile, but generally speaking, how often do we expect the Athletics to be the nuts on a slate this size? Going to come in likely low owned. Do you have any interest in either side of that, especially Hauser, where some pitchers can accidentally fall into a strikeout per inning, especially this projected lineup? Only Esteury Ruiz and Jonah Bride since the beginning of last year, a sub 20% carry against righties. Everyone else is like 25% or better. Like, these are pretty staggering strikeout rates, but it's Adrian Hauser. That's just not who he is. Do you take a chance or no at 6K?
If you wanted to throw a couple of 6K darts, it's not like off the table, but it's low end in my opinion. I would rank him below a number of those cheapo SP2 types like Garrett Whitlock and so on that we talked about for the DK slate. There's potential enough there for 6 clean innings, a handful of strikeouts. Maybe he finds a few bonus strikeouts because these A's are so bad. But we're talking about a guy with a 14.1% strikeout rate over 31 1/3 this year, over a bigger sample, 102 2/3 last year, 15.2%, while also walking 10.3%, double his walk rate from this year, I'll add. And 2 years ago, 17.5% strikeouts and also 10.7% walks that year. So he's been pitching, in the small sample, kind of better maybe than he has in the last couple of years in terms of the free passes. That's probably why the ERA is down a little bit comparatively. The xFIP is down comparatively, but not a good pitcher. Just a guy who might eat some innings. What he can do effectively, I think, is take the home run upside away from a guy like Seth Brown, a guy like Ryan Noda, a guy like whoever else, if Rooker's in the lineup, let's say. Sub 2% home run rates each of the last couple of years. Cuts launch angle pretty effectively. Cuts barrel rate pretty effectively. So I think it's just a game where Hauser goes out, gives you 6 decent real life innings, maybe gives up a couple of runs, but there's no real DFS upside on either side of it. So if you want a couple shares of him for 6, it's okay, but not great. Same story if you want a couple shares of, it would be the hitters that you named, the Esteury, Ryan Noda, Seth Brown. I could even just take that as a 3-man, but maybe I'm grabbing like Shea Langoliers from the bottom of the lineup as a sneaky power hitting catcher. Not great from the A's though.
All right, lightning round here. Let's see if we can get through this next game really fast, because wow, it's 3:42. I think the homies might be live soon.
Hey, imagine how panicked you'd be over here. It's 4:42.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care about bleeding late. I just respect.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing but love and respect for those guys. But if we run into their show, we run into their show. I did it already the other day.
Marlins at the White Sox. 4.3 run total for the White Sox, 3.9 on the Marlins. The pitching matchup, Yuri Perez taking on Dylan Cease. Cease, 4.5 expected ERA. One of those pitchers kind of falls in line with some Alek Manoahs, some Corbin Burns, guys that were elite the last season or two, and then this year just hasn't been the same. I don't know. It does seem like Alek Manoah has been affected by the pitch clock. I've seen some research on that seems to be the biggest culprit. So I don't know if that's something that we should think about for some of these other pitchers or not. Marlins, Yuri Perez, one of their top prospect pitchers, a 2.25 ERA, is pitching better than his Sierra expected ERA. WHIP is 1.17, 24% K rate, 24 innings. Now, his innings have been all over the place. And I won't say the innings, but the innings strength of schedule has been all over the place. There was a game at Coors in the mix. Every game that hasn't been in Coors, it's been pretty serviceable in terms of fantasy point production on DraftKings. Now, he's worked his way up to almost 9K, and the White Sox are, I would say they're getting healthy, but Eloy just got hurt again. My season long thanks him. This matchup,
5 damn minutes.
It seems like I've had him in my season long for the last 2 or 3 years, and I swear he's like my most active IL guy.
Always hurt. It sucks. He's a talented kid.
100%.
We could see him.
So Man, what are we doing here? Cease still is maintaining a 25% carry. Kind of reminds me of Giolito, where the other stuff not great, but if you're still striking out 1-4 and you get a matchup like the Marlins, there's definitely strikeouts to be had. And then inversely, Yuri Perez striking out 1-4, a couple metrics not on his side, but again, high pedigree from the minor leagues. I'm kind of interested in at least having some shares of both pitchers, so I'm going to take a look at both ownerships.
I'm hoping you're about to tell me that they're both low owned, which I expect might be the case because I am very interested in both of these pitchers. They're two of my, just on raw fantasy points, highest projected pitchers of the day. I like both of these guys. Yuri Perez is a premium top-end prospect in all of baseball. Very, very good high-end kid. He was 19 on tax day this year. So just like, elite to be in the major leagues at just having turned 20 years old and putting up numbers. Like you said, debuted, I think, in Coors Field, or at least made that one start in Coors, but 24.2% strikeouts. The 11.1% walks are ugly, but he'll figure it out. The 4.57 xFIP is probably more honest than the 2.25 ERA is right now. But again, he'll figure it out, and I think there's tons of upside for strikeouts here. I think there's upside to keep this team down over 5-6 innings. Maybe they find a win. At the same time, Dylan Cease, I'm all over that. 30+% strikeouts each of the last 2 years. Garrett Cole's on that list of pitchers who are down a little bit this year in terms of the strikeouts too, and he's down harder than Dylan Cease overall in terms of the total dip from percentage points perspective. So if I'm rostering Garrett Cole with confidence, I got to roster Dylan Cease with confidence against the Marlins. Big time spot for pitching for me on both sides. Minor shares maybe of some of the bats, particularly probably more of the White Sox going back against the rookie than the Marlins coming back against Cease. But it's not great on the bats on either side.
Yeah, and here's your ownership numbers: 8% on Dylan Cease, 0.5% for Yuri Perez. So, opportunity. Yeah. The price tag is a little pushback, but it's there. Bomb rating. Oh, by the way, Luis Ariz batting 400. We expect
I think
that.
Esteury Ruiz fell off the 100 stolen base pace at this point. He's only at 29 now. He's been kind of not getting on base. But yeah, Arias had dropped to 370 something and pushed his way back to 403, which is just an accomplishment in and of itself. Usually you see those guys tail off, and all of a sudden now he's in the 350s after a couple of weeks, and he roared back. I think he's got a shot at it. I really do. Just an elite hit tool.
Yeah, that'll be a fun sweat down the stretch, and then you might get benched the final week if he's sitting on a magic number. I don't know.
Hopefully, go Ted Williams style.
Yeah,
you know that story, right? The doubleheader. Last day of the season, Ted Williams is hitting 400. They got a doubleheader scheduled. Manager says, "Hey, I'll sit you so you can hit 400 for the season." Ted Williams played both games, went like 5 for 9 or something like that. Hit 400, hit 404, increased his batting average. I think it was 404 for the season.
Right, I love those old school romantic stories. Right. So I mentioned earlier,
and then went and single-handedly won World War II for us.
And then flew back the next day, played in the World Series. Then flew back. It was a whole thing. He had to be there. So fun fact about this game, I mentioned earlier that bomb detector. We referenced the bomb detector. There's a guy in this game that's number 2 in my bomb detector. Actually, number 4 now. Now that some lineups came out. Who do you think it is?
Is it Luis Robert Jr.?
No,
is it Jake Berger?
It's Jake Berger.
That was number 2 in mine.
Did you see Jake Berger against Jake Berger up against Michael King yesterday?
I did.
So the screen read Burger King at the top. Whopper. It was great. So I just want to put that out there.
Nice.
And then on the Marlins, not much projecting for power here. So good opportunity for ownership all the way around. And yeah, I'm with you on the pitchers being what they are, especially a team like the Marlins not hitting for much power, 92 WRC plus, so I can maybe tap into some Cease with a little bit more confidence than usual. And then Yuri Perez, the price kind of spooks me, but I know the kid's going to be great, and his swing and miss stuff is already there, and the White Sox kind of dipped into getting weaker. The only thing that scares me is there is some scrappiness to this lineup in terms of just strikeout hunting with Robert Moncada and Jake Berger being the guys, and I guess Yasmani Grandal being the guys that strike out over 1 in 5. But again, the ownership opportunity is just kind of too great to not have some shares there. So I love how coagulated pitching ownership is on 5 guys, and there's a lot of fun names. Even though there's like tougher matchups and pushback, there's a lot of fun names that really, really low ownership to have some fun with, and those type of names are how we get. Or for me, how I would make those Brave stacks unique, and probably the Padres when we get there. So, little strategy.
Exactly. There's so much opportunity to just differentiate any concerns about ownership by just rostering different pitchers. On a slate like this, that's the easiest way to go about it, and it's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to have such a nice spread of pitchers through this like mid-range here that we've been talking about, and some of these high-end guys that are going to be under-owned. I really like the opportunity here. But touching real quick on that White Sox lineup, I know we do want to move on. You do have, despite their struggles, Timmy Anderson, Andrew Benintendi, 2 very tough guys to strike out who can put the ball in play. And then for all his strikeout struggles, like Yasmani Grandal certainly knows how to work a walk against anybody, especially a kid with a 11.1% strikeout rate pitching after he just turned 20 years old. So there is definite potential for him to go pear-shaped pretty quick, but I just love the opportunity for his strikeout upside there. So I would roster some White Sox bats on just the idea that he could go pop. But it's not great, and I really like that spot for Yuri.
All right, matriculating on to the next one. Reds and the Cardinals. Ben Lively up against Jordan Montgomery. Pause for editing. All right, 3.6 run total for the Reds, 4.6 for the Cardinals. So virtually not much offense implied here in Busch Stadium. Ben Lively has come to the dance, quick, fast, in a hurry, 25% carry. One of the bets I saw on Twitter, my buddy Dean from Roto Grinders put it out there, and that put me on it, and I put it in my Discord. I'm sure it's been bet down, but at one point this week, the Reds were plus 2,000 to win the NL Central, and they were only like 4 or 5 games back from first place. And you think about this talent load that they've got, on top of everything, they just took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers, and that's crazy.
And they still got Encarnacion Strand coming up.
Yeah, so
he'll probably be here next week.
I don't know what that's down to now, or if you can get it like 1,600 or better. But I thought that was a really sharp bet, and I'm glad he tweeted that. But Ben Lively.
Same token, the White Sox are only 3.5 back, despite being like 8 games under 500 in the AL Central, which we know is a weak division. But taking Eloy Jimenez out of it sucks.
Yeah, that division's crazy. What is it? A fourth in the AL East would be first in the AL Central.
Sounds about right.
There's gonna be some AL East team that gets screwed and has to look up at like
going home sad.
Lively pitching to a 25% carry rate this season, 3.72 expected ERA with a 3.03 actual ERA, which is really impressive considering his home park. And then Jordan Montgomery, who we notated earlier, is expected to grab a decent chunk of ownership. To refresh my memory here, Monty is at 19.6%, so he's actually 4th in DraftKings projected ownership, better than Cole in terms of ownership, double that of aforementioned Dylan Cease, and a lot of guys that we flirted with that no ownership. And in a way, I kind of like the upside of Lively more than Montgomery, just based on who they are individually strikeout rate wise. I guess the pushback to Lively is his swing and strike rate is sub 10%, so maybe he's not going to sustain at 25% unless he brings that up. But I think so far what I've seen out of him is pretty good in this positive park in Busch Stadium. And I've been able to start to absorb the fact that the Cardinals can bleed red, even though they're a team that I just can't stop stacking slate after slate after slate. Them, the Mariners, we've mentioned this. So I like the pitching options here. Ben Lively, by the way, is unowned, 1% ownership.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So I like the idea of Lively, especially relative to the ownership in comparison to Monty. Offense wise, I would also assume that there's very little ownership going into either side. I'll double check that to make sure I'm not lying. But Reds highest owned hitter today, Ellie De La Cruz, no shock, 8%. Everybody else under 5%. He's not 2K today, so that's good. And then the Cardinals top out at 7% on Donovan. Everybody else at 4% or less. So other than Montgomery, this game just kind of doesn't exist to the field. So there's a couple wedges in here, but what are you thinking from this one? 7K Lively is probably going to get me in trouble at no ownership.
Yeah, I think it's not a FanDuel play at 87, but at 7,000 on the DK slate, I think you can go to shares of Ben Lively there. What I like about him, 4 starts, 29 and 2/3, so we've got some bullpen work in there. His strikeout rate spikes as a starter, not as a reliever. He was only like 9% something strikeouts as a reliever and 28 and change as a starter. So he's actually been higher than it looks like when he's worked as a starter. 3 of his 4 starts came in that bandbox Cincinnati ballpark, and he's put up these numbers in those outings. So I wasn't expecting anything remotely close to this when I saw that Ben Lively was back in Major League Baseball after pitching in the KBO, I think, the last couple of seasons. He landed in the KBO for a reason. He's not good over time, but he's doing it this year. So, yeah, I think there's a little bit of upside for the price on DK at least. I don't trust that enough to go to it at 87 on FanDuel. It doesn't project out great, but my model doesn't know most of what's gone on over the last 2 weeks with Ben Lively. So it doesn't project well for a reason, but I think it's on the board at 7K on FanDuel. Jordan Montgomery projects really, really well for me in this spot. For 7,300, 8,200, I think there's definite upside there. But if that much of the field is going to be on him, I'll probably just undercut and let the field have him because he's not a very high upside guy. He's one of those guys that for a long, long time we've been saying it about him is a better real life pitcher than he is a DFS pitcher. 20-ish% strikeout rate guy over time, 20.8% this year. Pitches clean innings could certainly give you 6, 7, even a complete game. If he gives you the complete game, you might be in trouble if you undercut at these prices. But it's not so significant an opportunity that I need to be above the field if they're going to be that high on him. I'll check out where the ownership comes down because I like the opportunity for the pitcher at the price, but not necessarily at that kind of popularity with so many options on the board. So I would have some, but not over the field if he's super popular. Same time, I don't need that many shares of Reds. Ellie's a lot of fun. I don't know if you saw in his 13 plate appearances, he's already got the career cycle. He's got a single, a double, a triple, and a home run. He's got 4 hits, exactly those. He's got a stolen base, 246 WRC plus. He's also struck out 6 times in 13 plate appearances, so he could strike out. He could retire now with like a perfect career. It's kind of weird, but he's been basically exactly what we thought. Just astounding power, amazing bat speed, amazing foot speed when he gets on. He's going to strike out at very aggressive rates. So there will be days where Ellie's going to put a big fat 0 in your lineups, but there will be days when he just bends slates to his will. He is a incredible talent at the plate. Really like watching the kid play. I like the McLean, India, Ellie, Steer part of this lineup if I'm going to Reds. Outside of that, it's just mix and match pieces. If you go to a bunch of Reds, you can use guys like Stuart Fairchild, TJ Hopkins, Kevin Newman from up top, but those aren't the great options. I like the idea of the McLean, India, Ellie, and Spencer Steer if you need to go to Reds, but there's no real reason to target Montgomery. It's not like he's a guy who gives up a ton of power. It's not like he's a guy who gives up a ton of runs even when things go south for him. So I don't love the spot for the Reds. I have a Cardinals problem just like you do. I'm sure I'll have some. I'm hoping it's not too much. They project okay for me. They project with home run upside for Goldschmidt, Arenado, and Gorman like you would expect. Big part of their problem has been Wilson Contreras, has not been playing as well as William Contreras. 210, 295, 367, and 86 WRC plus, 7 home runs from a guy who already was disliked by the pitching staff and not doing a good job at catcher for you. That's a problem for them. But there's a lot of pieces in that lineup that I can't get away from, so especially at price.
Yeah, looking at what was I looking? On FanDuel, Jordan Montgomery is 3rd highest in projected ownership. Now it's only 11%, and that's a third of the highest owned Ohtani. But 11% to be top 3, SP3 on the slate in ownership. He hasn't gone 6 innings in like 6 games. I think it was against the Tigers. So I think me and you're in alliance. You gotta be comfortable about that quality start potential because it means so much over there. So that might be a wedge against him. But 11%, it's not as egregious as some of the ownership we're seeing on the DraftKings site. But yeah,
with so much of the field going to Ohtani, that just creates opportunity for all of these guys. I think it's just, even like you said, if with him at 11, if I landed at 15 or something like that, like I wouldn't be upset about it. I don't plan to get to that high a level on him just because of the sheer virtue of having so many options. But that wouldn't be tragic then against 11% ownership on the FanDuel slate for where he projects for me for price.
I agree. We did get a couple lineups leaking out. The Marlins lineup, the Brewers lineup came out. Brewers lineup, they threw in Blake Perkins, Joey Weimer's batting 5th. Marlins, Arise, Soler, De La Cruz, Jesus Sanchez. So it looks pretty par for the course. So no curveballs, just maybe different orders.
How about Luis Urias? 3 position eligibility for 2,300 on the Fanduel slate. I know he was cheap with, I think, 2 position eligibility on DK. Hitting 9th as a potential wraparound play back up to the top with like Owen Miller, Willie Adames, Christian Yelich, and William Contreras. That's a nice little DK stack. I kind of like that.
Yeah, put him anywhere. I'm with it. All right, I guess it's time for Coors Field. And we've got a big number on the San Diego Padres, 6.9 giggity up against Austin Gomber, who has a 7.24 expected ERA, a 1.64 whip, 15% K rate. Hey, he's pitching better than that expected ERA. He's got a 6.99 actual ERA, so he could regress.
I'll go you one better. A 5.11 xFIP. Which is still tragically bad. You don't want to be at a 5.11 xFIP, but it's better than 6.99 ERA.
My goodness. So before we actually talk about the match is pristine, right? We can cut corners there. But ownership-wise, on a 13-game slate, Terry, Fernando Tatis, who's number 1 by a mile on my bomb detector tonight, 26.5% projected ownership on DraftKings. That's a big slate. Number 2, Gary Sanchez in the year 2023 is 21%. Ha-Seong Kim, 19%. Juan Soto, 16%. Manny Machado, 14%. So the stack is pretty doggone high-owned with a focus on Tatis and Gary. And this is, again, a spot where it's Austin Gomber. Only argument against it is ownership, and we've talked about it almost ad nauseum. It's easy to make high ownership a little bit more unique if we have to be there. My knee-jerk reaction is to almost always just cut in half and then make that half unique, because I like to save the equity of my portfolio for so many of these low-owned teams. So with that information, what are you thinking about the 7-run Padres tonight in Coors Field?
You don't just want 150 Austin Gomber shares? Weird.
Yeah,
I think we could probably attack that guy with some Padres bats here. I'm not going to worry too much about the ownership. The as we talked about, the model, the process, and everything takes care of that for me, so that I'm going to get these guys in unique combinations when I get to them. They're not even aggressively high priced. Both sites haven't really gone game by game aggressively pricing Coors Field this year. They're just kind of coming in at where they normally are. So, especially if we get Xander Bogaerts back, by the way, who did say he was planning on playing tonight, I think like 2 days ago, but then said it would be up to the organization. He refused to go on the IL when they wanted to put him on the IL. So we'll see if we get him. That would change the top end of the lineup, make it even more effective. But yeah, I think we can go to it, and then you find your holes for ownership, hopefully around some of the better players. Tatis, Juan Soto, Manny Machado, as many shares of those guys as land in my lineup, I'll be happy about. Gary Sanchez, 4 home runs in 39 plate appearances, and a nice little told you so, remember me, whatever you want to call it. Gary's never been bad. He's just a flawed player in terms of the strikeouts, and people don't understand him, but I do, and I love him. Cheap prices, Gary can always be in my lineups. Jake Cronenworth is having a bad year at the plate compared to what he normally is, but he's usually a nice cog in the machine for this team. 17 homers last year, 10% above average creating runs, always cheap, always under-owned. So I think you can go to all those mix and match parts just on virtue of it being a Coors Field game. It wouldn't shock me if a Trent Grisham had a good game and Austin Nola had a good game, one of those oddball kind of plays. So I think you need to go, full lineup 1 through 9 if you're going to the Padres here. Rockies on the other side. I think the Yu Darvish conversation is worth having.
Yeah, 8K on DraftKings, really low price. That's $1,500 discount to his FanDuel counterpart. He's coming in at 4% ownership on DraftKings, and on FanDuel he's 1% ownership. So quality pitcher in against a matchup that you can get the best of. We have seen some pitchers go into Coors and do well. We've seen the inverse as well. Sometimes I worry about pitch mix for pitchers, but Darvish has 33 pitches he could throw, so I don't really care. But I think the price is just too low to not buy into a positive range of outcomes. Yeah, to go his way. So you're probably going to be a little bit more strong. You're way more creative at pitching than I am. I'm finding that really quickly. So what are you doing with Darvish? Who by the way, the last 2 years strikes out lefties over 28%, and this confirmed Rockies lineup is throwing just 3 righties, so it kind of plays in his favor if you want to extra.
And all of their good hitters are lefties. Everybody else, like Elias Diaz, apologies to him, and I guess Randall Grichuk, but most of their good hitters are lefties. I think it's an upside spot for Darvish based on that. He's just too good to be that low owned when he's 8,000 on the DK slate. I'm debating it at 95 on the Fanduel slate for a small handful of shares. I don't think it'll be difficult to get above the field on Fanduel, but I think he's very much on the board at 8K on DK. I would be aggressively, not crazy aggressively, I'm not saying get 50% of them against 4% ownership, but if you're 10, 12, something like that, I think you're sitting pretty there. 5 starts in his career. This is something I would never look at except for Coors Field. 5 starts in his career at Coors for mixed, with mixed results. Last September, though, his best start of his career at Coors Field, 6 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts. That's an effective Coors Field start for 8,000 on the DK slate. So I think there's a little bit of upside for Darvish against this lineup. It's not something to get carried away with. Don't go out and put him in your lineup 150 times and then tell me that I screwed you up for the day. But I wouldn't be shocked to see him put up a playable score at 8,000 here.
Yeah, I think I'm buying in. And with that said, we've also seen a trend that lately in Coors where the road team gets way more ownership than the home team. And that's again today. Nolan Jones leads the Rockies in projected ownership at 4%. So good opportunity to get a Coors Field offense at a 2% aggregate ownership, and in the shadows of some 6 to 7 run total Braves, Padres, Brewers, stuff like that. But that's still an opportunity, nothing, if nothing else. So I think that means I'll be there at least 4 or 5% ownership. But yeah, I think I'm buying in to a little bit of Darvish as well. So Padres 1. So here's the podium here. I think in agreement, Padres would be 1. What's second on the podium, Darvish or Rockies offense?
Ooh, that's a tough call. The Rockies are so bad. I do agree with you, though. The opportunity to get Coors Field bats probably outweighs my desire to, on such a big slate, have to go to that Darvish pitching spot. So I'd probably say Rockies 2, Darvish 3. But that's close. That's a lot closer than anything is to the Padres. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, all right, I agree. Let me get caught up on anything. Dennis said Cubs just a pitching staff and 9 players away from running away with the NL Central. I mean, that's a good point. Maybe a new skipper. I don't know. Steve said if Arise hits 400, Ted Williams' head will be spinning. Ouch. Oof. I don't know if John will let that happen. Whenever, what a crazy story. All right, let's move on to Mariners and the Angels. So only a couple games left, so we're getting there. We didn't run as late as I thought, and then somebody said that the homies, I guess it's a basketball night, so they don't do baseball. So right. we're vibing.
This slate doesn't exist.
Yeah, right.
We can talk as long as we want.
Mariners and the Angels. Mariners a 3.8 run total. The Angels 3.9. Is Luis Castillo versus Shohei Ohtani. I mean, if you live in Anaheim and you're going to this game, what a show you. And if you're buying tickets, you're probably using the SeatGeek app, and you're probably using code GUNDACKER to get $20 off
to go. This guy with the tie-in.
To go see. I meant to put I have graphical assets, and I meant to put them up today, but I didn't because SeatGeek's logo is so boring. So I had to anyway, I don't want to lose sponsors, but Castillo taking on Ohtani. Castillo is almost 10K on DK, over 10K on FanDuel. Ohtani's 10K, actually cheaper than Castillo on FanDuel, and 10.4K on DraftKings. Ohtani is the story of this slate. Why he's the thumbnail boy today. He is 42% in projected ownership on DraftKings, 33% on FanDuel. So this slate will do a lot as Ohtani does anything or nothing. So it's also probably going to make this a late developing slate. So if you're up high early in the afternoon or early in the night, when that game kicks off, being one of the final 2 games on the slate, you'll be sweating what he does, depending on if you do or do not have him. But man, what a pitching matchup we got here. Castillo, 3.4 expected ERA, almost a 30% K rate, 15.4% swinging strike rate. Sure would be nice to have him instead of Carlos Rodon in New York. Because we got nothing to do with Estevan Florial, apparently, and Peraza's just rotting away. Hey, I'm not salty, whatever. Ohtani, 3.12 expected ERA, 34% K rate. So strikeouts for guys who like strikeouts, both lineups, abilities to strike out are there, especially the Mariners side. On the season against righties, 25.7% overall K rate. 96 WRC plus. There's a lane on this Mariners team. Cal Raleigh in the projected lineup. Raleigh, Teoscar, Kelnick, Suarez, Mike Ford striking out 27% or better. And then J Rod also can strike out almost a quarter of the time. So good strikeout spot there. And then inversely, the Angels have just one guy in their projected lineup, Anthony Rendon, that has struck out less than 20% against righties. So I'm here on both sides. But like we said, Ohtani's coming with a lot of ownership. Castillo is coming in as the third highest owned pitcher on DraftKings. That's 14% less than number 2, Tyler Wells. And on Fanduel, Castillo is actually less than Garrett Cole at 6%, where Coley's almost 9%. And I kind of like Castillo better than Cole. And I don't know what's causing that, because it's only $100 difference in price, which is essentially nothing. And then I guess I understand 11K Cole on DraftKings pushes you away when Castillo is over $1,000 cheaper. But yeah, I think just generally, I think I prefer pre-flop Castillo a little bit more. But yeah, I think we're all over pitching here, and then you would expect with such high ownership on pitching that no one's touching the offenses. So I always have it's almost a rule. There are some spots where I won't do it. But anytime a pitcher is 30-40% owned, I have to leverage the field with a stack. So I probably get into some Mariners stack. The entire team is under 1% owned. So you'll find me in the streets with 3-4% of Mariners floating around. And then inversely, the Angels' highest owned guy is not even Trout. It's Matt Tice at 1%. Trout's at 0.5%. So no reason not to if you're managing portfolios. And that's why I would undercut cores the way I would. I just throw 2-3% on those onslaught stacks, because you're going to get separation from the field quick, fast, in a hurry if one of those guys implode. It's very unlikely that actually happens, but in the case that it does, there's still a range of outcomes that it does. But big time pitching stuff. What are you doing with this game?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's very, very much focused on the pitching on both sides of this one. I want to have a decent amount of both of these pitchers. I'll probably be under that massive number on Ohtani. I'll probably be a little bit above that Fanduel number for Luis Castillo. I really like that spot. Totally agree with you. I like it a little bit better than I like Garrett Cole, and pitching better than Garrett Cole. There's a good reason for that. 70 2/3, 29.2% strikeouts compared to Cole's 25 or whatever it was. 5.7% walks, a .98 WHIP, 15.4% swinging strikes. Dominant strikeout rate, swinging strike rate among the league leaders. That's among the very couple highest swinging strike rates in the league. On the other side, Ohtani, 33.8% strikeouts, a 14% swinging strike rate, a 32.6% CSW, both of which are again among the league leaders for strike throwing. Just on pure ability to throw strikes against two heavy strikeout teams, there's massive upside for pitching in this one. There's a strong chance that the top pitcher of the slate comes out of this game. It could be either guy, but there's a pretty strong chance that the highest total pitcher, or very close to it, comes out of this game. At the same time, I'm with you. I want some of these bats. I want to take some shares of the Mariners. It's a team I get to a decent amount anyway. And I do think that there's home run hitting. Those heavy strikeout guys, when they connect, the ball tends to go far. So if they happen to get to Ohtani here, I think you get a little bit of upside. And what you get with Ohtani is the massive strikeout rate, but also a 10.2% walk rate against a team that doesn't have aggressive walk rates from a lot of these guys, but doesn't have low walk rates either. They're in the upper middle league, slightly above league average range. So I think there's enough upside for him to give a couple free passes. He makes one mistake, and now we're off and running with a Teoscar or a Cal Raleigh home run at 1% ownership, something like that. So a few shares of Mariners is fine. It's not something I want to get carried away with. On the other side, the Angels are a little bit less appealing for DFS because we can't roster Ohtani in the lineup. But I do still think there's appeal around Ward, Trout, Rendon, Brandon Drury, Mickey Moniak, maybe some Jared Walsh, depending on what ends up being in the lineup. What I do think is that this Angels team is going to really start to roll once they get Hunter Renfroe off the paternity list, full health. Rendon is an underrated, underappreciated player in baseball in general, I think, at this point, and specifically for DFS. 284, 401, 349 with a 118 WRC plus. Hasn't hit for a ton of power this season, only a 4.1% barrel rate, but 43.3% hard hits is okay. Only one home run and a .064 ISO, but it's only 137 plate appearances. He's super cheap and never owned, so I don't mind going to Rendon for some average, for some correlated scoring. Hit me a couple doubles, drive in a couple runs, get some runs on the board, and I'm good with your performance at those prices. But yeah, without Ohtani available for DFS, it kind of sucks. But it's important to remember that he is in the real life lineup. So that run creation engine, that turning the lineup over could happen from him still. You just hope he's not the guy that hits the grand slam and you don't have him. So tepid interest in Angels bats, strong interest in both pitchers, stronger interest in Mariners bats than Angels bats.
You know, I was thinking, I tweeted the other day, it's like every day, and you know the struggle, we got to fix Luis Garcia. There's another guy.
I like that tweet, yeah.
Yeah, but they can't figure out Ohtani hitter, Ohtani pitcher. Like, it can't be the name, because there's multiple instances in the league right now of...
Right, and they know how to score that correctly, where Luis Garcia's double doesn't get scored for Luis Garcia, the pitcher. Yeah, it doesn't make any goddamn sense. Will Smith is another one. There's a Padres reliever, Will Smith.
Yep.
That I always have to change to Bill Smith every time they're on the same slate. Change him to Bill. I changed one of the pitcher Luis Garcias to Fuis Garcia, and I changed the other one to Guis Garcia, just because it's easy to just hit the one letter.
And the Logan Allen screwing me up lately in the spreadsheet, where I have to take out the old Logan Allen's old numbers. Yeah. Right. Same team too. What are the odds? Anyway,
this one's a lot better though, at least.
Yeah, so much better. Yeah. Chat, if you guys are late to the stream, first of all, thank you for being here. Secondly, hit that thumbs up. Terry has a website called rotoscouts.com. It is free 99. There's so much content up there. The daily articles are a must, and then the YouTube channel. I'm gonna put a link to this in chat. youtube.com/@rotoscouts. We are up to 129 subs. We have enough people here that could be 140 the next time I hit refresh. So if you're not subbed to his channel, man, boom it up, hit that sub button. I'm actually subbed on 2 accounts. I found out the other day that, yeah, one of my Fortnite accounts is subbed to your Rotoscouts. I was like, I knew I subbed.
Yeah, I remember when that came up the other day.
So but yeah, 129, that should be 140. You're getting very in-depth there. I don't know that there's anyone else going in-depth as Terry does, and he's doing it daily. So daily free content, take advantage of it as you can. He also has free Discord, check that out. A lot of grinders, and I think this is like this community that's watching us and watches you, watches me. This is a very small percent of the general MLB DFS community where they're actually like baseball purists, right? They just love the game. They watch the game. So that's cool that we're extra nerdy and we can appreciate the fact that we're all extra nerdy. Because I can get it. You don't have to watch baseball. You just have to know ownership and probability of success, and that's it. You can play the game and go from there, but it's still fun to walk through the weeds a little bit and say,
the only
hey,
person who's been watching us do this for the last 2 hours and 15 minutes who isn't a big baseball nerd is probably my mom. So hi, Mom. But yeah, everybody else watching is probably a gigantic baseball nerd, and we love it. That's what we're here for.
It's a niche within a niche within a niche. Right. So appreciate every one of y'all. And then if you, I thought I was screen sharing. Oh no, I am screen sharing. Okay. And then if you want to get access to my spreadsheet, the bomb detector, my player pool, I'll be carving this out after the show, where I tier my pitchers, put players in each position I will play, some notes, my personal stack percentages, stuff like that. That is accessible behind the paywall at rundfs.com. Also have pitch report. I need to do a tutorial video to kind of explain it all. I need to reinstate the K Factory, which was my strikeout projection model. But there's some good stuff there. There's the 24/7 premium Discord, the pre-log voice chat. So you can go get behind or into all that. Go to rundfs.com, click VIP memberships. Once you do upgrade, upgrade, click VIP portal, link to the Discord, link to the spreadsheet. There's a lot of ghost subscribers that never get in the Discord, and I feel like there's so much value in that Discord that you're kind of doing yourself a disservice there. And then the rest of the year, this, in my opinion, is the best deal I've ever put out. $249 for the rest of the calendar year, so you're getting 6 months, and then you can rebate that down with that $100 credit towards FC. So basically $149 for the rest of the year with a month or two of full access cruncher. So go check all that out. If you have any questions, DM me on Twitter or Discord, and I'll get you taken care of. Get caught up on chat before we get into the main event.
That sounds like you're giving that at a price where people should be happy to pay that for the rest of the baseball season, and then they're getting your basketball and your football content basically for free.
Yeah. And like I said, when football gets here, it's not going to be that. Like, it might be that price when football gets here, and you're missing 2-3 months. I just do it because I know that the dog days of summer, the NBA guys have given up. I know some of y'all ain't
those baseball nerds we were just talking about.
Exactly.
People.
Yep. And so I know not everyone here is a churchgoer, but in church we there's people that show up. We call them the ABCs. It's like Easter, Christmas only type of people, and that's kind of what the NBA, NFL people. Because I go live. I'm telling you, Terry, during baseball season or during basketball, I can go live. I could probably burp on air for an hour straight and have 300 viewers, and like it's nuts. But baseball, man, it's a different grind, and you're seeing it. Like, there's a lack of content elsewhere, and it's not a knock on anyone else. It's just no one watches it. So I have extra appreciation for the minority of you guys that do that do watch it. So shout out to you guys. Getting caught up on chat before we get into the main event. Mama says, "Can you walk the main event? The last show. The last.
I didn't have that.
It's the wrestling in me is taking over. The match on last where I'm from is the main event.
The main event, sure.
Mamba says, "Can you walk me off this Pittsburgh stack ledge? Am I missing something?" I mean, it's a little overowned, but yeah, I don't know. It wouldn't be my favorite. Tempted to go Brewers and Nats double stack pitching. Okay. There's murmurs over here that you might not have the balls to play Pittsburgh. Way to go. What's up, Dave Johnson? Appreciate you stopping by. All right. The last game tonight, we'll say that. Cubs at the Giants. Marcus Stroman up against Anthony Desclafani, Disco Stu, as he's more affectionately known. The Cubs with a 4 run total. The Giants 4.2. Stroman's coming into this game with a 3.69 expected ERA, 2.39 actual ERA. Strikeouts have been there, 22% on the season. The 3.8% barrel rates are really, really good. And then, of course, ground ball has just been his thing. 56% ground ball rate to righties this year, 63% to lefties. So he's a good pitcher in a good environment. Oracle Park will usually play towards the pitchers. I guess Oracle Park's actually dead league average in strikeouts, 100 on the plus factors. But a decent spot for him because this Giants lineup, depending on what's the confirmed version, 25% K rate to righties on the season. So I do like the thought of Stroman without looking, though I don't like him as a person. We have beef. He has blocked me on Twitter. Yeah, he is 3% owned, and I think that's another one of those really unique opportunities where just looking down here as a reminder, these are some names that are better than their ownership. Sonny Gray 0.8%, Ben Lively 1%, AJ Smith-Shawver on DraftKings 1.8%, Marcus Stroman 3%, Yu Darvish 4%. There's a lot of great ways to get different tonight. So if you are on a trendier Pirates, Padres, teams like that, to get away from like Ohtani's moved up to 41%. So I think Stroman's right there in the mix, and especially at sub 9K, where 20 plus is not a outlandish range of outcomes or outlandish expectation against this Giants team. Depending on what the lineup is, though, I mean the the Giants do have a little bit of pop. 431 slug on the season against righties, 184 ISO, 762 team OPS with a 110 WRC plus. So it's not like a free matchup, and none of those matchups are free for any of those pitchers. It's just betting on talent at that ownership. I'm willing to do that, and Stroman fits the bill. Inversely, Desclafani, 4.52 expected ERA, 17% K rate, sub 8% swing and strike rate. This is a weird spot here where the Cubs can accidentally give you a strikeout per inning. Just Nico Herner, 11% K rate. Everyone else probably an aggregate 1 and 4 K rate. So if Disco Stu turned in a serviceable night at 7,400, like if he broke 20 fantasy points tonight, I would not be surprised. And because of that, because of the matchup, I probably am going to be found in these streets with some Desclafani ownership. The last couple games for him have been very Desclafani-esque. Negative points against Baltimore, good team. Pittsburgh 13. We haven't seen a 20 from Disco Stu since, ironically, the Astros and the Cardinals. But it's not impossible for him today. So I think I'm there, and it's not necessarily a Desclafani play. It's more of a matchup play. If that lineup comes out, different than projected, which I don't think it's gonna be too different, I'm in it. He's at 5% ownership. So I still think it's reasonable that I can see myself at 5-6%. So just a lot of fun pitchers to get behind today. And the run totals kind of agree that we don't expect a lot of production here. And according to this weather report, it's under 60 degrees out there. Another plus for pitching. So
yeah, that cuts things down in San Fran. The wind doesn't impact as much in that stadium, but temperature certainly would. So that's interesting. And both these guys are firmly on that list over time of like guys who are effective enough to get in there at the right price, right ownership for DFS, kind of like what you're talking about for Stroman today, who I totally agree with you on the DK slate, 8,700. That's a good spot. That's a spot I would have some of on the DK slate. But I think both these guys fall more into that better real life pitcher than DFS pitcher on the average. But you're getting some strikeouts from Stroman today, and you're getting very nice depth from him, 79 innings and 13 starts. He's going to chase that quality start, going to chase the win here. So I think he can do it. The quality start doesn't matter on DK. And the problem with him on Fanduel is a $10,200 price tag. That just kind of sucks. If he was even in the nines, like price him at 92, like Jody Perez, somebody like that, like 10-2 is just, it's kind of untenable for Stroman. He projects well. I might grab a few shares, but it's a little bit difficult at that price for me. Desclafani on the other side, I think it's again more of a DK play, 7,400. That's a functional SP2 if you get that handful of strikeouts, some good upside into the 20s there from him over there. 8,800 on FanDuel, I'm a little less inclined to go toward. Maybe enough meat on the bone if he gets you the quality start and a handful of strikeouts, but it's not great on FanDuel. By the same token, only limited interest in two teams that I do like going to when they're under-owned. They're all pretty cheap on both sites. They're all, at worst affordable on both sites. I think I like the Giants lineup a little bit better in terms of who's in it, but I like the opportunity against Desclafani a little bit better in terms of who the pitcher is. So I'm kind of torn on all sides on this one. Probably limited shares on all sides in this one, particularly with the hitting if it's cold.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the run totals kind of agree. Let's see, somebody asked about AJ Solver's pitch count. I want to shout him out. 20 Rick. Shout out to 20 Rick. Do you guys know if AJ Smith-Shawver has a pitch count or what he threw his last time out? So, his last game that he started was May 25th in the minors. He went 7 innings that game. I don't actually know how many pitches he threw, but he was a stretch out starter in the minors. Then he made it to the majors, and he came out in the bullpen at Arizona, went 2.1. So, I don't think he got de-stretched in 2 weeks. So, I don't have a concrete number, but I think me and you were kind of bracing ourselves for a shot at 5 innings, which kind of makes him more DK than FD for us.
That's my expectation would be 5 innings, just because he's a precious arm. And like I said before, a kid who he's a young 20. He's like Jody Perez's age, a little bit older than Jury, oddly. But this kid was in high school in 2021. So they're going to protect his arm to a degree. But in 5 innings, I think he can give you a solid handful of strikeouts in this matchup and provide value at the DK price. Chasing the quality start for the FanDuel price is a little bit more dicey. But I definitely think 5 innings is in play. I haven't seen anything about a limited pitch count.
Yeah, me either. Mamba says, Gun, does regression tracker only count for negative regression, so no positive regression? No, it does, but if I it'd be a very long tab title that would take up a lot of space. So the way I have it sorted right now is guys that are due for positive regression. But if I sorted it inversely, and I always say paralysis by analysis is a real thing in baseball. If you dive too deep in analytics, you'll just be spinning in circles all day. But there is a way to look at who's overperforming versus their expectations. So right now, in limited samples, 17 plate appearances, Greg Allen, my boy, 571 slug. His expected slug is 114. So if that held up, and plate appearances are pretty important when looking at this, I would be looking at that. Another guy that looks like he's overperforming with some sample, Geraldo Perdomo, 167 plate appearances. He's got a 468 slug expected slugs 279 and stuff like that. There's really not a lot of household names up here. Ironically, there is Francisco Alvarez, but his expected slugs 420. But his minor league numbers, I'm willing to kind of disregard that. But this isn't a tab to like make decisions, if that makes sense. It's more of a tab to just kind of if you need some info on a guy who maybe come off a multi-home run game, like the Isaac Paredes of the worlds, when they pop off once every 3 weeks or once a month, just kind of see if that's who they really are. And it also a quick way to get.
To me, tools like that are like, it's more to help you correct a misperception than it is to help uncover some hidden gem a lot of the time. It's like, oh wow, this guy's raking, like Geraldo Perdomo was absolutely raking early this season. He had his rookie year last year. I think he was below the Mendoza line over 600 plate appearances and was god awful. So it was like, oh wow, he finally arrived. He maybe is who we thought he was, and now it's kind of settled back in toward what it was last year. And everything you just said totally supports that. So it's like, oh, okay, that does actually make sense. I think that's kind of the stuff that's super, super valuable in being able to uncover, because that prevents you from wasting shares on guys who aren't actually that good. And I think that's important, to not get carried away with wasted shares.
One more note from this tab before I get back. There's a hitter with a 462 slug. Expected slug is 626. And he has BVP. Kyle Garlick is still got room for slug improvement here. And another thing to keep an eye on is this tab will also give you average launch angle. And from the research I've done, the sweet spot seems to be 15 to 20. But, if you get 14 to 21, whatever. So a guy like Garlick has a average launch angle of 21.7. So close enough that I would buy into it with a 33% barrel rate. Just crazy.
Yeah. And what's important with hitters to keep in mind when you're just looking at launch angle, you want to put that together with something like barrel rate, something like, that'll give you it needs to cut through, because launch angle for hitters will include like just infield pop-ups. Right, that have a 40-degree launch angle that will drive the average up for some of these guys. So it's important to cut that with something like barrel rate that will tell you the true nature of a hitter like Garlick, who has an outstanding barrel rate and is a good power hitter. So just keep that in mind as you guys are looking at those columns out there.
Yeah, and barrel rate it considers launch angle, right? So that's a way more valuable stat in my opinion. But I put it all there just because it was readily available information.
Yeah, absolutely. And like launch angle is super important for a guy like Christian Yelich, who despite a ridiculous hard hit rate every year, just pounds the ball into the ground. It's really annoying.
It's rough. So that is the entire slate. So chat, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns to round things off, I'll see if I missed anything. If it's like, if you could see that it's lost in the chat, just re-put it. I know there was a couple questions as we were going that I was missing on, because there was some good conversation happening as well. Kay Johnson said there's a reason for that gun. The both of you actually get into metrics about players and position. That's why we're here. I appreciate that. Again, like, you don't have to do it. We just do it because it's passion. And a lot of shout outs to your mom. Mama McBee. Shout out to her.
I realize the internet is not a place you want to mention your mother.
I did a birthday shout out to my mom on a Stochastic show and chat. I think EMAC was my co-host that day.
Fortunately, our chats are, everybody's pretty nice, and nobody seemed to go crazy with it. But I don't know. I think I might have taken that opportunity to say something pretty inflammatory if it was somebody else talking about their mom.
Oh my gosh!
This show
all right.
Officially 15 minutes longer than the first Avengers movie.
Wow. Hey man. Oh my God! It is 4:30. Wow, 2.5. I know we're so long-winded, But I mean, we held 100 viewers pretty much the last hour and a half, 2 hours. So
Awesome.
people don't mind it. Let's look at some bomb rates. So in your article, I saw that Marcell Ozuna was somebody you liked as a homer today. Looking at the bomb detector, just trying to double down some sample. Tatis is at the top for me. No shock there, and he's got cores. I got Joey Weimer, limited sample on both sides here. He's got number 2 grade for me. He's batting 5th today, and Andrew Monasterio, that's fake. There's no sample size there. Jake Berger's up there. I'm kind of believing in that. Kyle Garlick. I think we've mentioned Kyle Garlick enough tonight that I got to pick him as a homer call. It's just, it seems like once every 30 minutes his names come up. Harper's up here, Altuve, and then that's without the park factors. What are like top 4 or 5 names for you?
So like I said, when we touched on it before, I'm just getting a lot of Dodgers and Braves just kind of pulled up into the top of the model here. And it's the obvious guys, the Olsons, the Acuñas, the Muncies of the world. So guys that aren't on those 2 teams. Kyle Schwarber, number 3 overall, 16.56. We talked about his upside against lefties. Lefty doesn't really matter with that opener. And then the massive upside once they go to the bulk reliever that he's got there for a home run. So I love the spot for Schwarbs. Tatis is 5th overall on the model, and those numbers are all within like a point of each other. So he's right there. I totally agree with you on that one. Kyle Garlick, we touched on, was a top 10 play in mine as well. So I'm with you there. We can definitely go to that. Non-Braves and Dodgers, Nolan Gorman, Luis Robert, and Jake Berger are all right there as well. So I had Luis Robert a little bit ahead of Jake Berger, but he's supported by an above-average mark in mine as well. And another spot we talked about that I want to swing back to is that Royals power upside against I forget who the pitcher was even, but it was a semi-popular pitcher. It was the Orioles pitcher, right, Wells? So the Royals power upside. Yeah, so I'm getting Sal Perez with a nice rating there, and I'm getting Vinny Pasquantino with a nice rating there. So a couple Royals potentially sneaky home run hitters. But yeah, my pick overall for the day was Marcell Ozuna because I wanted to go with a less chalky Brave. And like we talked about, Ozuna, Orlando Arcia, and somebody else, and Eddie Rosario were the only low-owned Braves. So I'll make my business there all day long.
You heard it. All right, chat. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Hit that thumbs up on the way out the door. And then maybe this is a Friday thing, man. We might have to keep doing it. Make sure you go check out Terry and Roto Scouts. Follow him on Twitter. Follow him on YouTube. And I appreciate it, man. I got to get into the premium Discord, get in the voice chat, make my player pool, and then it's grind time. So catch you guys on the flip side. Appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Good luck. God bless. Go win some money. Boom. We out here.
Okay, gang. See you.
Yep, appreciate you.